Hello, everyone, and welcome to RHAP's coverage for Survivor Global for the finale of Survivor 47. Rachel won. Rachel got me the draft win, which I'm very excited about. Wearing my tiara for the people that aren't on video. I've been wearing it since she won. It's way too tight for my head, but still making it work. And I have a great guest to talk about this episode and the season at large with. He's someone I always love to talk about Survivor with, from Survivor South Africa. It is the great Jacques Berger. Jacques, thank you for being here.
Hi, Shannon. It's great being here. Congratulations on your win on your tiara. I saw your Instagram reel. It's really a stellar one. Did the people in Australia not look at you weird, like a full adult woman running through the streets with a tiara being phoned by? I'm assuming it was your husband.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, for those who haven't seen the video I put out, it was me just celebrating. You can see it on my Instagram or Twitter, whatever. Blue Sky. And so we filmed some of that. Like, firstly, I did this before Rachel won. I was really confident she was going to win. So the most impressive thing Rachel did in an impressive game was getting past my enormous jinx. And yeah, the stuff that was in public, like at the grocery store, we hated that. Peter hated that. I hated that. I had the crown on, then I'd like hide it. Then I'd put it on, like, no one's coming, go. And the clips are very short because we didn't enjoy being in public and doing that. But we did it for the content, right? So thank you to my husband for going along with my dumb ideas and coming up with and adding to them. He was like, do the swing. He's into it. Marry someone who wants to do the stupid stuff with you. I think that's my biggest takeaway. But I'm very happy that, I finally got a draft win and that it was with Rachel, like, worth the wait,
I mean, it's related but unrelated, but I don't know if you ever saw my Survivor application video. I think it's on YouTube. No. I think there's both. They're like the really shit one, which I didn't get on, and then the better one, which I got on. But I shot it the day after the season 6 finale. So I was in Cape Town at the promenade of the dock areas, whatever. And it was just like this montage of me and doing like these random things in Cape Town, like in front of the public, and people were watching me. And Haley was like, why are you doing this? It's so awkward. I have to film you like climbing into like this small train that all the kids ride and everything. And so, yeah, I mean, it's I've not that I make a lot of social media videos, but I have done one where I was in public for, shooting 4 minutes worth of footage, and Haley was hating every second of it as well. So
yeah,
let's just repeat it.
It's you got to do it for the content, but yeah, I think that the special mention to the spouses who put up with our bullshit has to be the first special mention of the podcast. But Jacques, how are you doing? You're bookending my US Survivor year. We talked about the first episodes of 46, which feels like a lifetime ago. We peppered that with Taylor Swift quotes. That's where we were at in March 2025, 2024. Listen to me. I'm already skipping ahead. And now you're here on the finale podcast. What's happened for you in the last year-ish of time?
Has this been the longest that we've gone? I think, it has to be right. If it's the first episode of one season and the last one of the next one, I think it's kind of it's the longest time we haven't spoken. No, a ton has changed. I think the biggest one is I'm currently back in South Africa permanently. You can see behind me I have clear skies. Oh, well, not clear skies, but sunshine-ish skies, not rain, not snow. Wearing short sleeve shirts. Back in South Africa, lots of changes happened. We bought a house. I'm not one of those people who own a house, which is a weird experience. I know people always make a big deal out of it, but it feels like if you've ever played like Plants vs. Zombies or like these like shooting games, which these zombies come into your house and you just have to kind of defend. So there's no kind of endgame. You just play until you lose. That's what it feels like walking to a house. I feel like everything's going to break. Just constantly repair it until you die. So it's like a never-ending game or never-ending piece of stuff you have to do. But yeah, that's good. And like you said, I think our previous Survivor chat, we had all the Taylor Swift songs. I'm not going to do it this time.
No, and people were. My brother said a lot of people were like, "Wow, Jacques absolutely bodied you in that, and you should be ashamed." So I'm not going. I don't need a round two. I like doing things that I win. Clearly.
Yeah, I mean, I can prepare. I mean, I kind of suck a punch too. I can prepare with a list of songs. So,
yes.
It wasn't a fair fight because I had time to kind of prep what I wanted to say, and you had to, play by ear. So sorry for sneaking it up on you 6 months ago, but
yeah, it's fine. It's a controversial week for coming into things with lists, which we'll probably talk about later in the podcast. Yeah. But that is true. That was unfair.
Yeah, it was unfair. But anyway, now we've got the finale podcast, which is something I've never done with you. Usually, you and I do these podcasts typically right just around after the merge. So there's like these 8 or 10 people in the game, and there's like all these big moves and these alliances running each other. Now we kind of just have to, I don't know, take the season from zero and go through it, I would assume. So it's this new territory for me, that's for sure. So let's see how it goes.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of macro stuff with the season where it kind of ranks. Rachel's game is so interesting. Sam's game is so interesting. And they spoke to it, I think, really well. And Final Tribal Council will probably continue that discourse because the online podcast discourse and the juror discourse was so intertwined that you could tell that these were super fans, very online super fans who were like, what will your legacy be? I'm like, this is what we're talking about. It's like a you were Ben and Mike type winner. It's like, do they have like a line into the future of Twitter? Like, how are they doing this? So a lot of the discourse we had was on the show, and we're going to talk about it. But I mean, yeah, now that we're talking to you at the end of the season, how have you felt about the season at large? Who did you enjoy from the cast? Like, what have your thoughts been?
I think it's been an interesting season. I think because firstly, we'll get into it in a minute. I have some notes on it, but I think somebody, I can't remember if it was Dalton Ross, somebody said it's the first time in I don't know how many seasons where there's 3 tribes, and in the first 3 episodes you have like 1 from every tribe going.
Well, getting voted out. I think they've had that before, including Medivac. But I think, Mike said that it was, a vote each time. Yeah. So the disaster tribe trend was kind of ended here.
Yeah. And I think just from kind of the way the show is designed or the way the edit is designed, and typically the tribe who loses gets more airtime, so you get to know them better. So a lot of the time, one of these like really dominant tribes get into the merge and don't really know the players because you haven't seen that of them. To no fault of the personalities of editors, it's just how it plays out. So I think kind of coming in, I think I knew the players a lot better than I had on previous seasons. There was no person, I think with the exception of Genevieve, there was no person where you're like, who the hell's this person after 3 episodes? I think that's kind of an Australian staple where you're like 5 weeks in, you're like, hey, is this person new? Like, did they come in later? So I think Genevieve's maybe the only one where after 3 episodes, I'm like, I said, who the hell's this person? And then like later on, she gets kind of like she gets promoted from supporting cast to main cast, which was quite good. And I think it's also it was a very strong finish. I think these last 3 or 4 episodes were quite good. From kind of the Operation Italy, it kind of went, wow, now it's changed. It wasn't as predictable as you would have expected it to be. So I think the end game, there was a lot of, very good episodes. I have a reason on why I think that is, but we'll get into it. And then, I mean, you flake it in with some interesting characters, like, it's sad we lost Asia, who's a podcaster. I think we would have liked to see her longer. I think the production people were sad that John left earlier. I think he was a very good narrator. And then we have a couple of interesting characters, like, somebody like Rome, who, demonstrated that the sitting down and doing the puzzle with puzzle pieces handed to you is not a successful strategy. All the way until his demise, just after the what do everyone call it, pre-merge, merge, or with that whole sequence of him, it was great, the production. I think they just loved this guy building himself up onto this, high pedestal, and then just like this fall from grace. I think everybody kind of enjoyed that. And then obviously, I think we had a good winner in Rachel, and like you said, a lot of stuff in the final episode and final Tribal Council we can talk about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's, as you said, like the fact that it was pretty even between the tribes at the beginning. It goes with how I feel about the season, which was, like I said, my word is consistency. Like, I think it was very consistent. I think the edit was consistent. I think with small gaps, we can talk about Genevieve's early edit, but we got to know everyone, I think, in a pretty comprehensive way. I think that the play styles, like people were besting each other. There were wins and losses. Like, as Sam said, no one had like a perfect game. So they were all pretty even. I think that Operation Italy was a highlight for me, but otherwise I felt like it was reliably enjoyable time every week when you would show up. So I just feel like it was a consistent season. I know a lot of people have it as like their favorite of the new era. I really enjoy it, but for me, consistently, it's probably like ranked 4th. Like 42 for me has a special place in my heart, and I love that season. I'll defend it to my dying day. 46 is the opposite because it was such low lows and such high highs. And as a person, I tend to like that more. Like, I tend to the extremes, and I'll like kind of see the lows through for the kind of better things. which is something I've said in the past, even how I look at game styles. I kind of just prefer that in my life. So I put 46 above it. I think 45 is close to it, also really good. And I really like 47. Like that's the top 4 to me, probably trailing out to like a 41, 44, 43, which kind of ends up shuffling around those bottom 3. But yeah, I have it really high, but I have it like in the middle because I feel like consistently solid is my viewpoint on it.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's the emptiness machine that season 43 was, but it still was. I think there was still a lot of characters that were quite memorable. Like I said, we mentioned Rome, which is somebody.
Definitely,
yeah, and I think just like Soul was also somebody I really enjoyed. You know, he was just this. Even it's one of those people. Even though when he was voted out and he was a juror, he just had like such a presence on the screen with like his vest and the way he was sitting there and like looking.
People love the vest.
Yeah, staring down at the people and kind of giving these, 2-word explanations, and people go, "Oh wow, look what he said." So I think in terms of characters, I think also I had many good characters, and then I obviously you discussed a bit. I know people always complain about there's too many game bots on the show, whatever, and then you have like a lot of emotional players, like somebody like Teeny who wears a heart on his sleeve, and then it kind of gives you a whole another dynamic to the game, where it's people who's just playing with emotions all the time, which is kind of a refreshing breath for me, which I enjoyed. So yeah, I think you're right in terms of ranking it. Not the time to discuss it. I think we should go back to longer seasons, but that's maybe a different conversation.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I've been saying this whole time that with the shorter new era format, I've been drafting for the fact that people can win by winning out, because they have the outs at 4 and it's a final 3 and there's fewer rounds. If you're going to have, like even like split tribals where people are immune more, this is the time to win to the end. And I've been drafting big guys that I thought could do that. And then Rachel, who I did not draft for that purpose, did do it. So the prophecy came true, and that is, a way to possibly game the new era. And it's definitely set up this really interesting conversation around types of ways to play and being like an underdog like you've been, and fighting from the bottom and having the idols and the trinkets and the immunities versus trying to like have some overt control, which is really hard in the new era because players are such super fans, especially that they, want to one-up each other all the time. And it's really hard to play that to the end. Although, people always talk about the RHAP before. Tika did it, as well. They were just a minority group, but they marched forward together and got it done in really, really savvy ways. So I think that we have the group examples in the new era, and we have people kind of coming from the bottom and, like emerging, which I think we have a lot of examples of that. But yeah, it kind of feeds into this finale, and the finale ends up being the final 4. So what did you think of this as a finale? Because when Rachel wins in the first 10 minutes, I was like, I'm getting my tiara for my photo op. And for me, it was never in doubt. But did you think that there was like suspense here? Like, how did you enjoy this finale?
No, I think also in terms of just how the season played out, because like you said, you used the word consistency, because the edit was so consistent. I think for the most part, up until there were 6 people left in the game, I felt like it could have been anybody winning the game. There wasn't kind of, it's obvious that X, Y, and Z is going to win the game based on the edit or the perception or whatever. But I think after they were kind of building up this whole Genevieve and Rachel showdown, which was very good to watch as well. Kind of this positive rivalry where it wasn't salty, they were just like respectful foes. It's like when the All Blacks and the Springboks play each other, they're like, we respect you and you respect us. Let's go play the game. That was quite good to see. But I think after she got out, it was kind of okay. I mean, I struggled to see anybody else winning except Rachel, just from what we've seen up until then. I would have been highly surprised. And then when we sat down, I told Haley, I said, I think Rachel's going to win 6-2. That's my prediction. And then she won 7-1. So it wasn't kind of, what's going to happen, suspense. It wasn't maybe the most exciting kind of, gotcha, last episode that we've had. But I think the fire making wasn't not interesting. It was an exciting fire making in the sense that usually, I mean, it's fire making, you make a fire and then it's like it exponentially grows, right? So if you're behind, it's very difficult to make a comeback. But I mean, I think like Tina had like a massive, she was like, her thing was touching the rope before Sam even had like a spark, and then somehow you got back into it, which which was quite, and I think it shows kind of his personality, because she was kind of looking at them asking, what do I do? What do I do? And Sam was just like, I know what I need to do. I just need to do it. So it kind of showed kind of a different personalities and the way they played the game. So that was I was really surprised when she lost out on the fire. I mean, obviously, like I said, I predict 6-2 or 7-1. So maybe not the most excitement in terms of who's going to win. But you touched on it earlier, kind of the whole conversation this finale was, is it better to vote every vote right and know what's going to happen, or is it better to win the immunities, or is it better to have known what's happening but you didn't ruffle any feathers? So I think that's kind of the conversation. I think that was an interesting spin on this finale, and I think a lot more positive. We've seen a lot of people being very salty jurors in the past, being very like antagonistic, which I didn't get the sense like this season. I didn't get that sense from what we saw on the TV, that they were super salty about what happened on the bits we saw.
Yeah. But saltiness is interesting to me. I mean, I don't want it I mean, I think that there's intrigue there. I think there's something nice about a really positive jury. And I've also spoken about the trauma that finalists go through, and how, like, for our entertainment, we're like, yeah, get him, and like putting people through years of therapy, which I really struggle with. And as horrible as it was, like, Maria not voting for Charlie, I think, is the most interesting thing that happens in 46. And I love 46, but it's so interesting. Like, I could speak for hours just on that one vote. And I've read like articles now on the jury. Like, that's so interesting to me. This was positive and straightforward. But I also think, like, the coronation finale that we had, it was good for what it was. And I really, like, I don't have a lot of complaints in it. I thought Rachel was going to win on edit, on game. I thought she'd have to lose a challenge and fire when she is the clutch player. Like, she gets it done. I backed her so hard that she would get it done that I clearly recorded my video before the finale aired. So that's how good I felt about it. Then, once she wins the immunity, I was like, no one is beating her. And the argument that she gave at Final Tribal Council, which is like, if you put me out to be the threat, you can't sit next to me. It was an unbeatable argument. As well as I think Sam did at Final Tribal Council, I was like, there's nothing to say to this. Less than 1% of me was a little bit sitting there in front of my TV with my tiara on, thinking this would be a really funny photo if Sam's about to win. But I did feel that she had it on lock. So I don't really have many complaints. I think that coronation edit is fine. I just think in a different world, this finale might have been a regular finale where they start at the final 5. And if Genevieve just gets content in the first 3 episodes, then we go into the finale thinking Genevieve or Rachel, which is so fitting. And then Rachel does win like an hour and a half into that, not 10 minutes. Yeah. And I think that is fine. Like, I don't think we need more than that. So I definitely, was it the simplest possible finale? Like, there's very little to talk about, just even on, like, Rachel's fire decision, because she could have her cake and eat it because she was going to win. I was ready to come in and talk about Sue should put herself into fire, if she wins. Teenie should put themselves into fire, like, because the jury might like it. And I do want to talk about, like, having a seat at the final table and being heard and giving us something to be heard. Or, like, Sam needs to know, like, who he'd put in against Rachel, which seemingly would have been Teenie as the best fire maker. So that would have been interesting, because that was about getting Rachel out. Once Rachel won, I was like, it is done. And I think I don't have many complaints about that, because I do think as well, coronation edit for a woman is rarer and good. And I think as well, like, in terms of the edit, like, some of it I thought was very heavy-handed in ways, which we can talk about. But, like, even Jeff starting the narration in this finale is like, Rachel and everyone else, But I also think there are still people dismissing her games, and her game is quite nuanced. We're going to spend the next couple of hours talking about it. But I think you need to build it up a little bit. Like, I think a lot of what Sam was doing, not a lot, but some of it was clearly buried. And now, like, I still back that, like, for me, like, I'm happy to see what Sam did and still know that I think that Rachel should have won. But I think that if they build Sam up, because it's so much harder for women to get credit, then more people are just going to be like, well, she didn't deserve to win. She didn't get lucky. So, like, banging people over the head with it clearly still isn't even enough. And it's probably necessary for how hard that is for women. So if the edit was kind of pushing that narrative a little bit and, like, hyping it up as much as possible and hiding Sam a little bit, while I would like to see it all and would still understand, like, Rachel's winning game, I don't know that everyone could. So I think that the juice is worth the squeeze on that.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I think I actually like it, because, I mean, when they were kind of getting ready for this, for the fire making tribal, she was like, okay, I'm going to cut the bridge. This is what's going to happen. It's going to be you to make the fire. That's it. They didn't have any kind of suspense like, I will see when I walk into tribal, who I will choose. She was just like, kind of, that's what's going to happen. And then I enjoyed that when they asked her about the fire making, and she said, listen, I've done everything right. I don't have to now go and win fire again. I've already won 4 immunities. I've already used an idol effectively. I've already done so much. I don't have to do that much more. And I know that's one of the criticisms, because Survivor has a bit of recency bias as a player. When you're sitting there, you kind of remember the last thing, more prominently. And it's kind of this big showdown if you put on the mantle and you walk in, you're like, I'm going to take out the biggest threat. And then you win in fire. And people are like, oh, wow, what an amazing moment. And that's the last memory they have before they go to sleep tonight, before they have to cast their vote. So I kind of respected that she said, I've done enough. I don't have to do anything more. And this was enough of a game, and that she was able to claim it. I mean, obviously, final tribal lasts for hours. I mean, hours lasted until after midnight. It was like, you had no idea how long it is when you're sitting there. Obviously, 4 hours of people talking isn't that exciting, unless it's us doing podcasts. But I think it's good that they kind of accepted it. That there was no you have to do more. I think she claimed it, and I think the jury respected that. And like you said, it was enough of a game. I think the very interesting point that Sam made was saying, I'm the only one who voted correctly every single time. Now, that's a good statement. I mean, that's a very impressive statement to make. To say you didn't know what's happening half of the time, I mean, doesn't mean you played from the top all the time. Doesn't mean you had a commanding game, but it did mean that he had at least he knew what was going to happen. Maybe he wasn't steering the ship, but he knew that he had a compass, maybe a direction. So I'm not saying he should have won. I'm just saying it's a very interesting point where you've kind of ranked what do you need to win, and I think there are like 3 different approaches these 3 players had, and I think that's a very compelling one, saying I voted correctly every single tribal, and it's not a strong enough case, which actually just means how strong of a case Rachel had above and beyond that, which I think kind of solidifies the game.
Yeah, but I think Sam, and let's talk about Final Tribal Council with that. Like, he had to overstate his game a little bit, because his game, I think, had less to defend than Rachel's, which was more impressive. Once she's put out as the threat and she's sitting next to him, he's running uphill, she's running downhill. It's difficult to do. I think he did very well in characterizing his game, but sometimes he had to overstate it. Sometimes he said he took control, and I don't think he had a lot of control. I think he did very well in kind of a different underdog game to Rachel, which he also characterized it as like bobbing and weaving and like jumping from like stepping stone to stepping stone in interesting strategic ways, not as much by defending like Rachel did, but with like, this person's a shield and jumping onto this plan. And as I said for Sam a couple of weeks ago, getting out one threat to kind of buffer around to get further and further, which is what he did. But I mean, I appreciate the stats. Always got to appreciate a good stat. But like, Sam's got to know, he's like, he's overstating it a little bit. Firstly, voting correctly every time, like, because he lost his vote at the auction. So he would have been out of the Sierra vote, but it's a fun little stat to not be able to say that you weren't out. Even for like the soul vote, like Rachel's more in on that than Sam, but that was a pile-on vote. There were a lot of pile-on votes. So like, voting correctly every time, even like voting correctly every time, like he voted for Rachel and then Andy went home. So is that like voting correctly every time as well? So yeah, I think that that stat was maybe a little overstated, but I don't blame him for using those stats. And he came in prepared, and I think that mostly characterized his game very well, but he had to work to try and get it to Rachel's game.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. And I think it's difficult because you also don't know what a juror will value as a player sitting there. We saw it last season with Charlie thinking I had such a good relationship, and then she didn't even end up voting for him. So it's difficult as a juror to understand what's kind of a right pitch. But that being said, I don't think this is one of those jobs. I think most of the people knew who they were going to vote for coming in. I don't know if it was answered in the express or Jeff usually asks the question, if this and this happened, would you have voted differently? We didn't see that in this both show. So I think most people came in knowing who they would want to vote for. So I don't think it was that kind of big making the case. But I always find that from my experience and talking to the players who played Survivor, you kind of, unless it's something drastic, you kind of vote for the person you like the most. because we're humans, unless something drastic happens. So yeah, I think it's good. I feel a bit sad for Sue as well. I think a lot of time you have these people who just kind of get dragged to the end. I think she could have done more, but I also think that she didn't play that bad a game. She was in on a lot of the things. She knew what was happening. It's always bad if it's a final three. I mean, most likely somebody's going to get 0 votes. But I felt like it's not like Australian Survivor where you have just like one of these two people who just get dragged to the end and have like no agency in the game at all. I think Sue did at least, she had good connections. She didn't know what was going on most of the time. So I'm just wondering if it's like a case she could have made to kind of at least get a vote or two, or maybe I'm curious to hear your thoughts coming in if there's like 6 people left in the game. If there's a way or something that she could, I have an opinion I would like, but I'll hear yours first. If there's something she could have done to maybe put a better claim in at the end.
Well, firstly, I have to correct myself. He didn't vote for Andy, right? Rachel blocked his vote. So to be fair, the 2 times he would have been out of the vote, he lost his vote because this is a new era, which is so classic. That doesn't count as a stat of being voting right every time. I appreciate you being cute about it, Sam, but okay. If you lose your vote twice and you would have voted incorrectly and been blindsided, I feel like for me, I'm like, it's not like an authentic. What Andy said that he doesn't like incorrect stats. I feel like he wouldn't have vibed once Andy took away.
Did we ever see how that advantage works? Did she have to play it, like give it to a producer before they walk into
tribal? Yeah, she gave it before and said Sam, and then he gets to the booth and it says that he.
Yeah, but I can't remember if it was like it was a screenshot of the parchment, but I'm going to assume that's how it would work. We never saw kind of her like, "Hey, Mr. Producer, I'm cashing in my check."
That is, that's what, so his vote was blocked. So I feel like, but again, like they all had wins and losses over each other. That's why it's a difficult game for Sam to defend because he can't say. Like she got blindsided 3 times, but he would have been out twice. Like she bested him, he bested her. That's what makes this like dynamic so interesting. And she has all the other flashy stuff, and she was the big threat. Like I can't say that there was a big disparity in the fact that like a little bit, but I can't say he was like that much more in the know than her. And I feel like she had more control again. Like at the soul vote, he's not in that really. She's bringing him into that. There's some stuff around that. In the Carl vote, he's very out of that. Like I can't say that he's controlling things a lot more than her. I understand why he's saying it. I'm just saying, I see you with your stats, Sam. Okay, so let's just talk about what voting correctly is in terms of Sue, and then we'll get to the main kind of 2 as they were deemed in this final tribal council. A couple of things. Firstly, I think what's really important is like people like if I just get to the end, I can state my case. And Sue obviously thought that the age thing would be like a big game changer. I'm sure about loyalty, maybe get some relationship votes, but I think what we're seeing is like one person especially will be left out. Like we talk about goats, but like one person's going to be like the 0 vote finalist. It's really, really hard for people to even get a vote usually in these like 1 vote at least. Like no one's ever gotten more than 1 vote as the lowest vote getter in a final 3 in US and Australian Survivor. We did have a plurality in Survivor South Africa, but it's really hard to get even a vote. So that 0 vote finalist might not even get a chance to talk. I saw 0 vote finalists, like, Owen was tweeting about like Sue even getting the chance to speak. And I think that like, you can't just get to the end. You have to get to the end with something to speak about so that you don't just have a seat at the table, but you are speaking at the table. And that's my thing with Sue is it was quite a conservative game. Like even like, I don't want to ask to even be put into fire against Sam. Like why? You have the big Sam moment. You have nothing to lose. And I think that with like fire making, what I wanted to see as a decision is just self-awareness. For Rachel, the self-awareness to know, like, I don't need to pander to that. I have more than enough and I don't need to put myself at risk. Great. You know yourself, you know your game. For Sam, it should have been, I just need to get Rachel out. Who's best at fire? Is it me? Didn't seem to be, but if it was, put yourself in. If it's not, put Teeny in, And for Teeny and Sue, I would have liked to see, I need a big moment, I'm putting myself in. And for Sue to not even ask Rachel and to be like, I'm good, that to me shows kind of a lack of understanding of what the jury would value. And the other thing that I think for Sue that is crazy to me, I don't know if she said it in Final Tribal, but she's definitely said it in the interviews. She was the one, she says, who told Rachel to vote out Andy over Sam. Now, I was leaning to kind of Sam from a challenge perspective for Rachel, but I saw Andy, maybe Rachel doesn't want to sit next to Andy because he's bested her 3 times, and he actually did have a good voting record. No caveats, other than maybe John. So I saw that for her, but like it was a tweener for me. For Sue to push Andy, like Sue's best path is the hope of going with Teeny and Andy and hoping people disrespect Teeny enough and that people hate Andy enough. I think at the point where she's pushed Andy just from a pure emotional standpoint, and maybe this is like, again, like the issue with her game because it was a big Kyle thing. At the point where she's done that, that's like a game losing move for me. So that's like terrible. And I probably would have factored that into Chizy points last week had I known. I think her game, she did her game like it was a loyalty game, but it emboldened Rachel. Even like thinking through, and I was thinking last week, about Rachel's advantage game, and she had the idol and she had the vote block to split. And even if they could split, like Sue was immune. Like the two of them had it locked up as a minority, 3 advantages between the two of them, but for Rachel, to embolden Rachel. And I would just like Sue to do something to get a voice at Final Tribal Council.
I want to mention 2 things which adds on to what you're saying. Firstly, what you're saying about nobody respecting Annie's game. He was kind of like the cooler Doral in this season, where he was kind of flip-flopping and just
blowing up everybody. Plurality vote.
And just blowing up other people's games for the sake of. But at least I think he envisioned that as his way to the end, which I respect more than some of the other things that happened. But I think in terms of Sue, what I think was really good, I think what she could potentially have done, and this is something I've always struggled with, is I know people complain about advantages in the game and this and whatever, but she got her idol, the court red-handed idol.
The Lady Macbeth.
Like very long. Sorry?
Yeah. The Lady Macbeth idol, outdam spot. That's how I like to refer to it.
Yeah. I mean, she got it pre-merge, right? Yeah. And then whether you tell people or not, I mean, that's a different conversation. But she had this idol the whole game, pre-merge, merge, up until the end. And then it reminded me a bit about, I think it was Troyzan in Game Changers, where it's Final 5 and he's like, I got this idol like super early in the game, bang, I'm going to play it. And then like you negate no votes and you haven't done anything with it. And people afterward like, okay, what did you do? I think, and this is the thing about Survivor, some people play with advantages, some people play without it. You can win both ways. It's been shown repeatedly. But I think if you have something like that and things start becoming a bit messy, or you need to make a move or something, you see I don't have that much agency in the game. I think then saying, okay, this is opportunity. We can do an Operation Brazil or an Operation Phoenix, whatever you want to call it.
It should always just be named after different countries.
Yeah. Try and make a play and try and at least do something impressive, not for the sake of building up a CV or whatever, but saying, okay, I have this tool I can use to change the direction of this game, instead of having it until Final 5, using it, blocking no votes, and that's not impressive. If you do, Marianne showed the opposite. She showed, right, you can get to the end and say, I had this idol nobody knew about. I didn't even have to use it because my game was that good, but then you need to play a game where you get into that position where you can say, I don't have to use it. And I think that's kind of the one drawback for Sue is I think she had the ammunition to kind of make a move. I'm just sad that she didn't kind of do something with it 3 or 4 rounds earlier to kind of take control of the game, or at least show that she was a player in the game and not just cruising along. Yeah.
Well, ammunition is nothing without awareness. And in the Kyle vote, I think it was, I said Sue and Andy have been described as goats. They both need to do what I said, pow pow. They need to pow pow, which is just do anything. Like you're a 0 vote finalist. They're not even going to listen to you at Final Tribal Council if you sit there with this game right now. So you need to do something. And then immediately Andy did. He knew that perception and he 3-2-2'd it, and it was awesome. And I will always back it. Always back it. Even if it hadn't gone well before it went poorly, even if it had just gone poorly, it would have been right. And because we see what happened to Sue. Sue doesn't even get to talk at Final Tribal Council. That's Andy's other path. And Sue didn't know that was what she needed to do. And that lack of awareness, like you can't play with that. You're misreading the whole jury, which is such a crucial part of the game. So yes, doing anything, especially because she has an idol, as you say, was, I think, essential just to like upset the apple cart in any way, to have something to speak to. And once you have something to speak to, hopefully they focus a little on you and now they're listening. You need to get their attention. It's like, hey, I just did this. Now that I have your attention, I'm also 59. They first have to be listening to you. And I think Sue has really shown that. And anyone who could it's so hard, but anyone who has the awareness to be like, I'm a goat. Just it's like being being asleep and knowing you're awake, like when you have dreams where you can just do anything. That's like, I can do anything, like pow pow, anything, playing with house money at that point. So, or lack of house money. So I wish Sue had done that. But to talk about let's talk about it. Sam and Rachel, this top two for this, the first and second. Interesting battle of Final Tribal Council, and they talked a lot about their games, and I want to talk through that as well. I think they were both really interestingly against type, which was so fun. That was one of my favorite parts of the finale. It was like Sam was like, I had to scrap and I'm the under, and she was like, I came in as this big physical threat, and they're like, did you body swap? Like, this isn't what we would expect. Imagine saying preseason that they as a final two are doing that. No one would guess, and that is our misperceptions. I think I've underestimated Sam a lot. Like he was saying in exit interviews, or even before. I read an interview with him before the finale with Dalton, who had sat down with the Final Four, and Sam was saying that he'd already come up with Operation Italy as Andy had, and they kind of brought it together. And that was a big part of taking Andy on reward. I was like, he could never have come up with that, because I'm wrong. I underestimated him. I was biased on that.
Yeah.
I had a misperception. And as well last week, I was like, why doesn't he want to get rid of Jen? Like, he has to, but does he want to? He did. Like, he was very intentionally using the Genevieve shield. He had so much awareness to him. He had an Andy shield possibility as well that maybe even kind of came to fruition. So I think he was managing that really, really well. And I was underestimating him, and some wasn't getting shown because he's going to lose to Rachel, and we can't have people even more being like, he was robbed. Which we can talk about. So yeah, I mean, I think Sam's game is great, but I just think Rachel's game was better. And like, if the thing that Sam didn't do was achieve getting her out at Final Four, and if he does that, he's a solid winner too. But like, how do you see their two games and how they advocated for it at Final Tribal Council?
I think two things about Sam I want to mention. The first thing is I think he said it. He said he sucks at winning immunities, but he's great at winning rewards, something like that. He won a couple of rewards, right? He
won Operation Italy.
Yeah, exactly. So it's always weird it's a coin flip. It happened in our season when I was in after the swap on that Lamai tribe. I think we won 2 or 3 rewards, but we lost every immunity challenge. So it's such a coin flip in terms of what the challenge is for the reward versus the one for immunity. Whatever. So then people are like, oh, you're a bunch of losers. Like, yeah, we are, but also not. We actually win some things. We just lost the wrong ones, So not discrediting that she won 4 immunities, which is like a new record, joining, she's like now the 5th woman won 4 rewards, right? Or 4 immunities, right?
Yeah, because Kelly, Jenna, Chissy, and Kim. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite cool. That's mega. So in that regard, I think Sam, he did want something. It's just like he was absolutely useless in challenges. But then I think what cost him, and that's one of those things that's very difficult in Survivor, because you don't know what it is. But I know Tyson always says there's one challenge to lose. It's the family visit. And he won the challenge, and then afterwards it's like, oh, by the way, there's letters from home.
Yeah.
And then you're in that horrible position because he could take 3 people, and then 4 people couldn't get the letters, I believe. So you have like the majority of the people are going to be angry with you because it's not just food. It's you've taken away the loved ones or whatever. And it's because we're humans. If you think about mathematically, you're like, he did his best. He won the challenge. He got the food. This is just something that gets a bonus. But in terms of the reactions that people had, I think Carolyn and Tini was specific, like, he took away my letter from home. And it's actually that's part of the game, putting people in that difficult position. Like, what do you want to do? But I think that kind of finally lost him, even if he gets to the end. There were so many people who were like, oh, Sam is such a bad guy because he took away my letter. And I think that, like, the last sliver of hope he had. Heavy is the crown for the person who have to make that decision. That's the design of the game. But I think so many
very
people...
heavy and tight.
Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah. And then sorry, lost my train of thought now. What was I saying? Oh, yeah.
Heavy with the reward. My bad.
Heavy is like,
I am wearing a crown. Yeah.
And I think like there were just so many people that was not impressed by what he did then. And I think that kind of was, not say the final nail in the coffin, but I think then you get into a very slippery slope. You get back into a position where you can win the game if like those core 4 people and then obviously they tell the jury how bad you are, etc. And then I think that's just the difficult position he was put in.
I don't think that was the issue with Sam. Like, I think Sam was well liked. I think Sam, firstly, he's a young guy. He's got a great head on his shoulders. Like, people want to project a lot onto Sam that is just not there. Like, the way he's talked in X interviews by giving Teeny a lot of grace for Teeny, not reacting well to Sam. I think it is amazing. The way people are like, he's undercutting her at Final Tribal Council. He's making snarky facial reactions. Like, firstly, like, that could be at any time. We don't even know what that's to because it's an edit. Yeah. But also, like, he should be doing all of that. Like, this is war. Like, what should he just, like, lay down and die? Like, of course, it's a debate. Exactly. Like, and I thought it was enthralling. I thought they were both so self-aware. It spoke to, how much they know each other's games, that they had good rebuttals for each other. I think Sam was even a little better than Rachel. And I wondered if that was the edit to make it look close after, hiding Sam a little bit through the season, but now it needs to feel close. But I do think based on X interviews that it seems like Sam kind of did come away winning Final Tribal Council. It was just he had way more of a gap and an kind of breakable gap to get to the fact that Rachel had been the threat. And from a likability standpoint, like, I think that was there. I think he had closer relationships who voted for Rachel on just being purely impressed with her. This was like a gameplay vote, talk about like who you like more. My thing has always been, I don't know that you vote for who you like more, but I think that you will pretty much vote for someone you like. So if you like two people, now let's look at gameplay maybe. Maybe you still go with the person you like.
Yeah.
But I think you are open. Like, Genevieve was way closer with Sam, but she respected Rachel. Sierra I was surprised about, but maybe, that speaks to her relationship with Rachel, even pre-merge in that positioning. That she had a relationship with both and she was struggling. Like, we talk about the letters reward. He took Genevieve and Andy. Neither of them vote for him. So I don't see it as a social thing. I just think that there wasn't enough in his game. Like, I think it was kind of over before it began, and I think he did as well as he possibly could, but there's just not enough there. Like, he's talking about his game. I used the quotes. He said, well-rounded, which I think is fair, but so Rachel's, I think, was also well-rounded. They both had some strategic gaps, but are clearly smart strategic players. They're both physical players, but Rachel has more of that. They're both well-liked. Adaptable, also Rachel, unfortunately, but true, he's adapted in different ways. Dynamic and creative, and I don't think that's untrue too. So I think he characterized his game well. I just think, to talk a little bit about control was just an overstatement. But mostly my issue is that it just wasn't there compared to Rachel for me. And I think it's a game thing more than it's a social thing. I think they both were liked by people.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think I was also surprised that Sierra didn't vote for him. I was expecting her to vote for him. But like you say, I mean, and maybe that just shows, obviously there's a lot of things we don't see, but that just shows the relationship that Rachel had. Because a lot of the time you get to the end and it's kind of, I burned you, you came for me and then I got you. And I think Rachel was she wasn't, because a lot of people, a lot of times there's this question from a jury, like, why did you vote out me? What did I do with you vote out me? And then that's why I always like the quote that Tony said in Winners Dwarf. It's like, that's the game, we come in here, we have to walk up there, we have to write down a name, Jeff reads the vote and that person goes out. That's how the game works. We're not doing anything wrong. But I think Rachel did in such a way that she didn't antagonize a lot of people. She didn't create this. I mean, she and Genevieve had this well-respected rivalry, but there wasn't any votes of like, I just hate that person. I want to get them out of the game. I can't stand them. If they do X, Y, and Z, another day I'll go crazy. I just have to get rid of them. I think she played in such a way that the people in the jury don't think, Rachel, was so villainous to me or so antagonistic. She did it in a way that you can stand there and say, well, I tried to get you out. I couldn't. You bested me. And we tried to get you out, and then you won 4 immunities. And on top of that, you were a likable person. So here's a check. I think that's, if you want to win Survivor, that's the way to do it, right? That's kind of the if you can get people out in a way that they don't despise you, then you have a lot better chance of winning the game than, doing the Russell Hand style.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, the way to play, the way to win, because Rachel plays on this defensive game. And that's, and if I had any kind of criticism of her Final Tribal Council, I think that she was kind of overwhelmed by how well Sam was doing a little bit. I still think she was great. I also think it was a little one note, a lot of like the idol, a lot of like the big flashy moves. We expected a little bit about like the shot in the dark, which she's confirmed she didn't think to say. She didn't realize how much Twitter would love it, that it was worth kind of talking about. And so it was a little one note. And I do think as well, that fed into the narrative we got for her. I think her edit was a little bit one note. I would have liked to see these other elements that I've heard about her game. She's saying now that Sue and Caroline were allies of hers after the Sierra vote. So something like that, I would have loved to see, because that kind of goes away from the like purely like mechanisms fighter, like that's like the social coherence that she did have, especially through the mid-merge. She had these relationships through even like the Soul vote, Gabe, Kyle. Those were some of those bigger votes where she was like in the numbers. She had the numbers even when Caroline went home. So I would have liked to see more of that. I feel like she said it a little bit as well. She talked about like the underdog 5 and the way she'd had those social outs. I would have liked to have seen even more of that. Something I loved about her game that we didn't see in the edit was the way that she like hugely blackmailed Andy at Operation Italy, or after Operation Italy, when Andy went home, to be like, Sue and I will never vote for you if you lie to me again. And that was to try and control him. And when that didn't work, it gave her information. I love that. But the edit couldn't show it, and I get it, because she'd be demonized because it's hard out there for women. And I want to see that because I think it's badass, and I know that doesn't make her a bad person. It's just a great move. So parts of that are what I love about her game, but I feel like in the edit and in at least what we saw and what seemed to be of the final tribal council, it was kind of a lot on this fighter narrative. Which we will talk about at length now, I'm sure. But yeah, I feel like that was kind of where we were at with that.
I think that's kind of the difference between the way Rachel played and potentially Sue. It's when you look at Sue and Kyle, they were so over each other and kind of back and forth. And Rachel only had that one rivalry with Genevieve, which, like I said, was a well-respected rivalry. And then from that to kind of get to that position where you can still say you're the underdog, right? And I think that's kind of like you said, it's a story about the two underdogs. It's Sam's the one underdog where it has to kind of fight out, and then she's the underdog. But I think what's different is, yes, she won the challenges, which was good, but she also made kind of key social connections at the right time with the right people. And I think that was a saving grace. And then in addition, the night camo leopard crawling thing and spying on them and realizing, okay, they're coming for getting that intel, and kind of cross-checking that to what people are saying, like, okay, no, some people lied to me, now I know what's happening. That just shows you it's not just about having the information, but you have to actually go and get the information, right? So she didn't just sit in the shelter and kind of play the game in her head. Like I think Andy was sometimes just in his head kind of thinking of these master plans instead of talking to people and getting them to connect to them. I think she did a good job of winning when she needed to win, doing what she needed to do, get the information, using the advantages in the right way. Exactly. I mean, you mentioned the shot in the dark. She lost it, and then she didn't have a shot in the dark anymore. And then in the end, just being likable. I think it's like ticking all the right boxes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that it does obviously. I think that's why I call her a well-rounded player, even though there are, some strategic gaps. I think that if I were to kind of, look at her game, I think the one hole which she kind of spoke about, well, she's spoken about a couple. I think that she spoke about in Final Tribal Council that influence was tough. I don't think the social game was tough, but I will say, yeah, she struggled to get people to kind of do her bidding as much. And I don't know if that was this kind of cast and where she was at socially, or if that's, her as a player. But I think that was kind of a low number compared to all the other skills that she had. She also spoke about not being able to really predict people when they played suboptimally. Like she didn't think that, well, I don't think it was suboptimal. I think that like Andy's move, I thought that was a great move. She didn't see Operation Italy as a good move for him. But even within that, I always remember Richard Hatch talking about how hard it is for like players who see things so logically to try and like see things from like other, maybe more chaotic points of view. So I think that is something that probably a lot of like really logical players might suffer from just broadly, as much as I back Operation Italy. But yeah, I mean, look, let's talk about the Mike and Ben of it all, because that's been the comparison. It's been such a highly debated comparison. And then Andy brought it up because Andy is online, apparently in the past, and knows what we're going to talk about. And it's like, they are not well regarded. And it's so interesting to see the way that even the fans are reacting to this now, because even now they're like, it's sexist to compare to Mike and Ben. And it's like, but she agreed that, that she's in that mold. And I think that there's so many things here about like kind of fans not wanting to reckon with themselves. Like I think it's actually less about Rachel and Rachel's game. And I think it's more about fans don't want to have to reckon with themselves. Like, why did I hate that? And why do I like this? When like, it's totally fine to subjectively like one character more who's doing something compared to, other characters that you subjectively don't like more. But yeah, when it feeds into your analysis and you see one thing is really good and one thing is really bad, then yeah, maybe look at that, because that is a bias. But in saying that as well, those games can be very differently ranked. Rachel, and I think, did that game style, we talked about it last week, like the best. I think she definitely finished it off the best. We can talk about those comparisons, but that doesn't mean she's ranked the same as like a Ben and a Mike. I think the bias is people who hate that game style all the time and thought that they did or said that they did and now like it. Just unpack that. Then maybe you just didn't like those characters, and that like maybe character means more to you than game style. Because I do think usually the super fans don't love the advantage heavy and the challenge heavy game styles, and they like it now. So I think unpack that for your own subjective preferences. But yeah, on game, I think you can still say, I thought she was better. I think she did these things better than Ben and Mike, and we'll compare those games. But I don't think that those things, I don't think it's insulting to compare her to Ben and Mike. I think she does it. I think she's so aware of herself. I think that that's all very fair, and it's still really impressive. And you can like one and not the other. Just like kind of be honest about where those preferences are and like where the analysis lies for me.
Oh man, it wouldn't be a podcast we do if you don't complain about, I at least complain about social media and people being negative online.
It's at an all-time high. Well, not really. Things have been worse, but the discourse has been a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a hate, not a love hate. I have a hate relationship with social media, because I can like coffee and you can like tea, and that doesn't mean we have to be at fighting lengths. And I have to tell you every single time you drink tea that I have to tell you that you are such a bad person. I will never drink tea. I'm also one of those people. I don't know if it's an Africa thing or it's a me thing or it's the way I was brought up or it's my personality. I don't know, but I'm one of those people who feel like if you don't agree with somebody, you don't have to tell them that. You can just keep that information to yourself. It doesn't. You don't have to tell them, and you don't have to be antagonistic with them. And yeah, anyway, but bring it back to your point about comparing her to other winners who perhaps not as highly rated. I think Jeff said it best when he said, she's now the 5th woman to have won 4 immunity challenges. The 2 of them didn't win the game. So just winning out, sometimes it wins you the game, and sometimes it doesn't win you the game. And I don't like it when people are just putting you in a box for no reason, like you did nothing wrong. And like you said, she brought it up. She's the one who said, listen, and Andy brought it up as well. I think that in a season, it's always unique, and the people will vote whoever they want to vote for. And as the audience, you weren't there. So the 18 or 21 people or whatever who was there, they played the game and then they decided a winner. And then that is what it is. So you can't retroactively say, oh, I think they made a mistake. They did what they thought were right at the time with the information they had. And that's
I just wrote a very extensive article about how, like, I feel we can criticize that. I mean, we criticize everything, right? Like, that's my my job, right? And I don't. I think what I said in the article was like, and I'm not criticizing these jurors. I'm not even talking about this from a juror perspective. I'm more talking about how we as fans, as Gabe says, talk about Rachel's legacy, which is again something that we're talking about on the island in the Final Tribal Council is legacy. But even from like a Final Tribal Council perspective, I think what I've said is like, because the latitude for jurors is so major, where you basically it's vote how you want to vote. We can still criticize it, but just like only to a point, like less, and especially because also, all you have to do is vote. You don't have to do something in order to get a win, which you do in the game. So it has to be, I think, very specific to be like, wait, what? And it's more like, as I said in the article, and now I'm kind of rehashing it, but like we can, maybe criticize like the human move of like, that's not something we usually endorse for humans to be like critical or emotional or bitter or kind of, that aspect. And maybe that doesn't mean they're wrong, but it's something that's maybe bad. But I don't see that from a juror perspective. I'm just looking at it how we kind of look at Rachel's game, because I think that the legacy of Rachel is going to be something that even now is so, highly debated, between her being like, oh, she's so lucky and not good, or between her being like the best ever. And I think that will only get worse over time because people will stop remembering the nuances that I do believe exist in her game. And then the discourse about it will be even worse. Like, I think it'll be misremembered because there's so much kind of important nuance to all the good things she was doing, but with all the gaps that she had. And because the discourse has been so extreme from either side, that's going to be completely washed out to the extremes, as, discourse tends to do.
I agree with you. I want to say, think about what I want to say now clearly. You can, like I say, you can criticize somebody and not be negative or make them feel bad about themselves, right? That is possible. I think a lot of time people get unnecessarily personal when they criticize
that's
somebody.
always terrible, but that speaks for
exactly. So I will just say this about the jurors, as somebody who's played the game and as somebody who sat at a final tribal council and had to cast a vote. You don't have, as a player, at that point in time, you don't have full information.
Exactly.
You don't even know if the stuff the jury tells you, that the 3 finalists, you don't even know if that's the truth. They might say, I found this idol on day X, Y, and Z. And then afterwards you find out, oh no, that's not how it happened at all. And I think a lot of times, if people have watched the show over and you tell them then to vote, I think the result would be a different lot of times. And I'll give you an example. I'm going to think about how I'm phrasing this, because that's one of the casualties you have of voting without watching it with full information. There was a person in our season who voted for one of the 2 finalists based on a statement that was made at the tribal council. And then afterwards, they fact-checked it and found out, oh no, it actually went the other way. There was another reason how X, Y, and Z got that information. And then said, if I knew that, I would have voted differently. But you don't know that information because you just sit there and you say, what happened? And then you get this version, you get that version. And then you think, well, this version A is a lot more plausible than version B. And you think, okay, it has to be the truth. And then you watch it back and you're like, hang on, I got duped at final tribal council by what they said. So I'm not saying the jurors made a mistake. I'm just saying with the information they had at the point in time, they thought this was the best decision. And as the audience, you're kind of an omnipresent, an omniscience watching down, and you have all the information. So
but that's what makes it beautiful. Like, we're not trying to get any right outcome because there is no right outcome.
Correct.
And I don't need, how is the best? I mean, we're saying this now, like ranked voting, like what's the way to get the right outcome? That's not what we're looking for on this reality TV show. In an election, they should be that. Yes, that we need all the information and we need the best possible voting. But for something like this, I don't want them to go and get the tapes and like, what is it be like actual legal jurors? Like, it's beautiful that jurors, and it's not even about the season, but like, it's beautiful that's why the game is so complicated, because it's so flawed, because jurors come in so emotional, because that's so difficult. And I find it interesting even when I disagree with the votes or I criticize the votes, and I love that part of the game. And in saying that, I've been saying that we should exploit that. The fact that exists is such an interesting nuance strategically that is not being exploited enough. People bring up Chris Doherty, feeding like more of like kind of the lies, or at least like amping up the apology. I think that needs to be done more. And I've been saying that for ages. And that's why I think Rachel's biggest mistake from a final tribal council standpoint was ever saying that the idol clue was in the fries. Who is fact checking that? No one's fact checking that, right? So at the point where the idol comes out, she's already a big threat. She already needs to win out or lose. It's not about, upping her threat level, because that's done. She has a very overt game at the point where she can go and have a funeral at tribal council at the final 6 and be a huge threat and just have to win out. So why are you giving Sam the ammo to say you got it in the fries, which was the luckiest that Rachel got? And then he's going to extrapolate it onto things that are less lucky, things that I think are very fair, that Soul mentioned, we're going to have the curse with the discourse forever, which we can talk about on like, Soul giving her the advantage when she had already been screwed over, when she had the relationship with Soul to get the advantage. He can talk about that. He can talk about the vote block. He can talk about, oh, you just relied on these things. If she never said she got the clue in the fries, and even if she wasn't like a big idol hunter, on the way to the well, I found it and then I got it from the top, then he can't say anything. So that for me, like, I think that people should be thinking more about what is unknowable to a jury and lying about it. And I would have loved to see Rachel pioneer that. And then at the after show be like, by the way, I found it in the fries. And then they'd all feel like right idiots, right? But that's great. Because I think that once we get to a final tribal council, people feel like the game is over. I got to bare my soul like it's confession. But it's not. It's still part of the game, and you can still manipulate people, and that those people can be the jury.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I never thought about it like that. You can say like I mean, that's the thing now that you have the live reunion show, right? I mean, that's kind of the overflow of just you vote and then you go straight into it. But that's an interesting point, like you make. Because at that point in time, the votes have been read or whatever. You can say what you want. It's not going to impact the outcome anymore.
You do you, yeah.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I know people complain about the live reunion a lot, but I really think it's one of the things. I know Jeff says it's very rare, and this is the most honest it'll be, and it's not influenced by social media, and that's true. But at the same time, I mean, there's been so many people who sat there really thinking they were going to win, and then you have to go through all of that. I mean, just watching Survivor back, it's so traumatizing, and like you said, then you have to sit there go to counseling or whatever because you didn't win the game or whatever, and now you have to immediately afterwards explain it to Jeff and 10 other people, and you don't even know what's going on. So yeah, that's a maybe a different conversation. But in terms of your question about Rachel's legacy, I think I'm happy that she won, because I think she won in a, I know people always want you need to win like Kim Spradlin, like you need to control the game from start to finish, or like Rob from our season, you need to control every single thing that happens from start to finish. But I think she showed us that you can be a human, you can make mistakes, and you can get to the bottom and go up and down. And if you are a physical player, that's enough credit. It's respectable enough to win. And if you use advantages, it's respected enough to win as well. So I think because she played such a well-balanced game, you mentioned the word consistency. I think her game was kind of consistent enough overall that you can get it. You can say it's a respectable game. I don't think anybody's going to discredit it in the future.
Yeah, I think there were gaps, so it's hard for me to say consistent, but I would say varied, which is interesting because I'm saying there was like this one note pathway, but I think her game did that in such a dynamic way.
Yeah.
Like in the what I've called like the best defensive game of all time, that defense was so interesting. You know, like Rob said that it was stealthy, and actually like that game's meant to be very overt because again, you can go have your funeral and then come back from it and just be loud and then fight back. But she did have these stealthy elements of, you know, spying, and then the blindsiding that she did within that. Then it's obviously physical, there's advantages, it's so comprehensive. And to compare it to Ben and Mike, because again, I do think it's in that mold, but the best of that mold, more highly ranked within that mold. You know, I think like, again, it's a lot of conversation about Ben and Mike this week. I don't know if Ben and Mike were watching their televisions when they got the drive-by about how they're not good winners to Andy and Rachel, and now Andy might not vote for Rachel because she's similar to them. And I wonder if they were just watching and going like, hey, but a lot of Ben and Mike discourse this week. So I feel like,
I mean, they might be sad, but they can wipe their tears off with $1 million $1 bills. So I mean, what do they?
Yeah, I mean, money can't buy not being put down by Andy randomly at Final Tribal Council many seasons later. But I think actually it's been a good thing for Ben and Mike, because I think now people are like, well, maybe I do like that. Maybe that's more impressive than I thought. And I think that people, because they had a bias of not liking Ben and Mike, you know, did overlook and continue to overlook parts of their game. Ben and Mike were big threats. They both came in as like the blue collar battler of the theme. Max Dawson had a whole thread about like Mike and that. And yes, Mike has like the kind of social misstep at the auction that I don't think Rachel ever does. But other than that, I think the three of them are threats. And to a degree, they all have to wear parts of that threat level. They are not returnees who come in as winners or with that kind of discrepancy that's impossible to protect against. Like they come in as, with, to be fair, you know, with you are who you are, and archetypes are going to be in different ways, but like they have to wear and fight against that. And the way that they all did that was that there was like maybe an aura, you know, maybe we can talk about like other ways that their threat level increased, but the way that they all protected was defending. For me, like, you know, you talk about people who win a lot, like Kim wins 4 immunity challenges, but she doesn't rely on them. You know, Rob won 5, but that wasn't his game. I think the difference in the mold of the game is relying on safety and constantly needing to defend. I also think that's fine again, it's not my preference because I love the social maneuvering, but like, yeah, if you can make sure you're safe every time, then yeah, you'll probably get to the end and win because it's impressive and you'll always be safe. But I think the reason that someone like me, I might criticize that, is because if you don't have control, that feels tenuous to me. Like that is a lot to have to get it done every time without controlling to make sure you'll be safe other ways. But Rachel, firstly, they all did get it done, so props to them. Not Ben though. Ben, to be fair, he lost, and then surprise fire came in. We can talk about that, but for the, you know, basically they all did get it done on what is seemingly a tenuous path, so you have to credit that. And Rachel did have other outs. You know, she did kind of go under the radar and have social connections through the mid-merge when she'd been a threat at the merge, and she'd had that aura. And Rachel as well, like coming in as a threat, It is tough because she talked about, being like the petite Asian woman in the pre-merge. She has to show that she's valuable and good at puzzles, because otherwise she'll be out the door. And that's such an unfair kind of thing put on her archetype as well. So at the point where she's becoming a threat, she does find ways to protect against it. And then she, as she said, she gets the idol. And then she knows she can lean into being the threat a little bit more because she knows she'll have that further protection. So I do think that there are kind of strategic parts of that to put her on the pathway or to protect against the pathway that are impressive. So it is the defend game for me, but I also think that defense was so well-rounded and impressive in the way that she did it.
Yeah, and I think it's I like this concept you now taught me or woke in my mind about an offensive game and a defensive game. And now you can, I think different seasons, depending on how it plays out, like I say, sometimes you have like a bigger lines running a game and then the small people just get knocked out, and at the end you win and you say, I had played this very aggressive game or offensive game, you won the game. Good. But it's clear that this season, because like they said, there was no person, I like when Genevieve said that, like, is there any person who was at the top the whole game? No? Okay. So it kind of means that in this kind of situation, like you say, you have to bob and weave and duck and dive and roll and whatnot. It's good that with this defensive game, she could get to the end and still win. Doesn't make it less of a victory. The game has different elements every single season. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. I never thought of it like that. I get wiser every time I talk to you, Shannon. That's
no, fun. I thought of it. Rachel taught that to me because that so much so defines her game for me. Also, but thank you for saying that. But that's what I was thinking about it, because even if you think about Rachel's pathway, like every time she's going to be immune. It's like people can do other things, but again, if Rachel's going to win out immunity every time, I guess it's just about like taking out physical threats, and she's going to get to the end and at that point be a huge threat. So that, that's the type of game. Like it's so protected. Like I really see it as like shield, not sword, but the shield was so dynamic. Like it is defensive, but there's offensive moves within that. And even things like that she has pointed out, like as an example, and like Adam spoke to this a bit on the recap, but I think as well, it's not that she necessarily needed to win out every time, because she did have a shield in Genevieve as an example.
Yeah.
She wanted Genevieve out at 7, but then she would have had numbers because she had numbers. And at the point where she didn't have numbers, she did have a shield in Genevieve. Genevieve wins immunity at 6. Rachel says she wanted Genevieve out at 6. Andy wanted Genevieve out at 6. Genevieve is a huge target at 6. Even at 5, if she doesn't win, if Genevieve doesn't win, possibly Rachel goes as a better fire contender. And also, they don't know if Genevieve had an idol, but I could see if they want Genevieve out over Rachel fire aside, I could see them putting 3 votes on Genevieve. And they're like, okay, if it ricochets back onto Rachel, it'll be what it'll be, instead of voting for her. It might have happened. But that's still defensive. Having a shield to me is still defensive. It's still about surviving. But I think that the way she was doing that was really, really impressive. So yeah, like to compare it to Ben and Mike, who I think had that as well, I think theirs was a little less dimensional in the defensive game, but I would still categorize them all as defensive games. And that's why I would rank her, higher as a winner compared to them. Because yeah, I think that for Ben and Mike, like, let's talk about this, because I guess the biggest question mark.
We spoke more about Ben and Mike than half the cast of a seasons.
Because they've been
what season? What season?
Like in terms of like the big thing with Ben is like fire came in and saved him, and the big thing with Rachel is like the fries came in. You can't spell fries without fire. Oh my god, literally fires and fries. Those were the 2 things. And that's been the biggest knock against her game.
There's
like
no I in team, but there is an I in fire and fries.
And fries, yeah. And those were the things. And I think that is, she said that was the luckiest. And that's the luckiest thing that happened to her. Some people say that it was production manufactured, like put in the auction for her. How do you look at that moment? Because yeah, if she doesn't get the clue in the fries, she's not the winner.
How would they manufacture it for a specific person? Jeff has to put it in, it's covered, and then you don't know who's going to buy it. So you kind of do in this auction, because the person with the next money will buy the thing. Like you can game it. I don't think they know that though. Like we've complained about that from the New Era auction, but I don't think that they are like, they still think it's dynamic. They're not right. But like, but I don't think that, also like Rachel at that point, like it's not the main character of the season. It's not Andy, like I don't see why. I've seen them do it in Australian Survivor. In Australian Survivor, the underdog got a note that was like,
go to this place and we'll give you the clue. And I always thought that was so suspicious, that if it was an overdog, it would have been like, you want nothing, turn around and, don't pass, go to jail, or, but the underdog versus
your
this
silent editors, I mean, they're the most two-faced people in the world, those guys. They can be so, oh no, we want to give everybody a fair edit. Psych, not really.
Well, they don't want to. They've never said that. But yeah, I mean, I will always be suspicious of the blood versus water clue at the auction, because they wasn't a clue. It was like, go here to get your clue. And I really feel like it would have been different depending on who got it. The fries idol, they did not know who was going to get it. I really don't think that they think that's gameable. And I don't even understand why they would give that to Rachel, who at that point, like, Sam, Kyle, Andy at that point surely would have been, Genevieve would have been the people that they were. Anyway, I don't think that that's good. But how do you look? But it is lucky. It's very. I don't think it's manufactured at all.
No,
but I
she
do
got
think
saved by Soul as well, right? Like, I mean, you can say that's a personal connection. You can.
No, but she was screwed over to be saved by Soul. Like, I don't blame that at all.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying
that the bad group.
So there are some kind of. I mean, that's Survivor. I mean, how many people who won the game have afterwards said, it's 30% luck, 30% skill, and 40% strategy, or whatever the case might be. Everybody admits that there's some luck involved in Survivor. I mean, it's not a game of perfect information. So it's not an abstract strategy game like chess or checkers or whatever. There is a factor of luck in it. It's part of the game.
Especially like the fries idol. Like, people like compared to Surprise Fire, for me, I know that the letters might be similar, the same, but Surprise Fire was like a whole mechanism. People get clues in their napkins all the time. Whatever napkin you sit in, like that really is a part of the game for me. And I really don't think it's manufactured. But that was lucky. And I do think she should have lied about it. That's my one thing. But otherwise, I think that she had shields there. I think as well, she might have got a little bit unlucky that if she goes at 6 and she doesn't have an idol, because Genevieve was immune, it's like, that's the one person who won immunity that you wouldn't want. And otherwise, she does have huge shield capability. So I think she had a lot of outs, but they were defensive outs, and that's where I see her game. Yeah.
Anything else we need to talk about after the winners? I think there's so many other things, notes I have. Do you have anything else we need to talk about?
I mean, I'd like to talk about, like, where would you rank Rachel, like, from a macro perspective, even just like as a new era winner, or just very broadly, like, as a winner?
It's a difficult one. It's always ranked directly after thinking. I will rank it, I would say, in the upper half or upper 50 percentile of winners, because I think it was a more well-rounded game. I think it was a little bit of everything. Because I think the way I always think about a winner, this is just my personal opinion, it might be stained, it's just what I think. I always rank a winner in the way, and they say, if you play the game again in a winners at war situation, or you play it again, everything's on footing, an equal footing, or you kind of go back in time and you play the same season again, would that person win a game? Some people, I think, have kind of one-trick ponies, and they have one way of winning and they can't do it again. I think Rachel's one of those people who, if she plays again, she can win again. If that makes sense. I think a lot of people who, even though they won their seasons, I don't think they would win again if they played from any instance of Survivor. But I think Rachel's game was diverse enough that she would be able to win again. And that's something I always think of when I think about how good I think a winner is. So I would say in that, I mean, like I say, I don't want to name names or upset people, but I think the other winners who were a lot more one-dimensional, who I don't think would win multiple seasons, I think she could, if this season goes back and you replay it, I think she would be one person who could be able to win it again.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a big thing for me, is like game versus player. And I said last week, I think that she'd be a winner who's a better player than her game, kind of like an Adam Clyde, as strong as I do think it is a strong game. And I agree, like somewhere around maybe to just over half is where I put it. From a new era winner on game, I would put D Jam Marianne, who I think is criminally underrated with her positioning, best move from a winner. I think of the new era, like you talked about how she went to the end with her idol. That's because she made a big move without the idol and then even got to save it to the final tribal council. I think Marianne's third for me. Then Rachel's game, then like Kenzie, Erica, Gabler is kind of where I put it on game. But I think, in terms of that's where I see it for Rachel. But in terms of as a player, like she's so draftable. Like of everyone from the new era, if it was like I've seen their game, but they don't know each other and they're going out to play, so it's like a newbie game, but I know them. Like she might be first pick on the board for me as a new era draft.
That's kind of
on pure
that's
skill.
what I. You better verbalize what I said.
No,
I knew everything about them, but they haven't seen each other and they play again.
I agree. On skill, again, like the influences maybe a little bit of an issue, but maybe not with a different cast. I also think the cast is very good. Like I think these players came to play, like they were an AI optimized cast, and that's why they were all besting each other, because you have to speak to the quality of her competition. But as a player, I think, I take umbrage with comparing her to Haley's Brain versus Brawn game. Because I think that's one of the most impressive games ever, and it was very in control. At times it was defensive because Australian Survivor is a marathon, and she played like 15 different games in that season, but it was super controlled, I think, really most of the time, other than the twist-based stuff. Compared to, but like as a player in that archetype of like physical women, smart women who can win a lot of challenges, I see that. I mean, Haley came into her return on the defensive because she was a winner, and like had to play a really defensive game, and Rachel just did that but excelled at it. So I see that, and I think looking at people who I would draft from the new era, I think Jam Jam is always going to be sparkly but underestimated, strategic, he can win challenges as well. I think Charlie's a good one, another all-rounder. But I think Rachel's in the top 3 for me of who I would draft ever, just on pure skill, and I do think that is different. Like compared to D, I have D as the best winning game, and I think we got, from what I can kind of see of Dee's play style, I think she's a great player, but I also think we got like the maximum good game from her. Maybe I'm underestimating her. I don't think she was super lucky. She had a good tribe, but, Rachel wasn't exactly in a disaster tribe. That might be a big disparity, but like we've had much worse tribes. But Dee does, I think, maximize a good tribe that she has. And I think we see the best possible game that she can play. Whereas I feel like Rachel is scary. Like, I don't think we've scratched the surface of what Rachel can do, because the skills are all there and she achieves so much with the limited opportunities. If she has more, it could be dangerous. So from that perspective, I think, as a player, super, super high. As a game, I have her in the middle, still very high with winners I really respect. But about 4th of 7 for the new era for me. That's my disparity.
Who from this season do you think we're going to see again?
Andy, Genevieve, Rachel would be a great winner to come back, because again, it's kind of like Sophie Clark, actually, I think is another great comparison. Like Sophie played one way, and she was quite young, and then came back in Winners at War and played like a godmother type game until, one of the most, impressive votes that Tony pulled off against her. So Rachel as a winner, I think, would come back in a really impressive way. Sam, I think, was great. I want to talk more about his game. Yeah, what do you think? Teeny, maybe? Jury's a little out on Teeny.
I think we're going to see Sol again.
Apparently, like, it didn't translate as much for production.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought he was quite driving the screen.
I don't know.
And I think I'm just looking pre-merge. Maybe John. I mean, I don't know. He was a good narrator.
No, John Lovett's not coming back again. I feel like we got him once and that's done. But okay, so can we talk about Sam as well? Because I do want to talk, because I feel like, Sam, I love Sam. Like, what did you think of Sam's game overall?
No, I mean, I think Sam was one of those people who's... Sam's game was interesting because in the beginning, he was in the tribe and they voted out John. And then he kind of went to Andy and be like, Andy, here's the buoy. Come with me. And then later on, Andy turned on him. He's like, wait, what? I gave you everything I had, and now you're turning on me? And then kind of reconciled with him again at the end, which was kind of an interesting arc. I think the thing with Sam is, because he's such a... I mean, obviously, Carl won all the these rodeo game, carnival game challenges. I think if Carl wasn't there, I think Sam would have won a lot more of these rodeo game challenges. But I think those people always struggle to... I think somebody like Sam always has this kind of, I am this big guy. I am the kind of like exactly all the things that Dini said. Like I'm the the captain of the football team, whatever. And I think it's a very difficult stereotype to come in and then get to the end and then to still say in a very nice way that you should vote for me. I enjoyed Sam. I think what was good to see from him is usually these guys play games that are kind of in a position of dominance where they just like mow down the competition. And he was kind of the opposite. He was cut down and then he had to play from, an uphill game all the way to the end. And sometimes those people who are kind of his big dominant players or like alpha males, call them whatever you want, if they don't get a footing early on in the game, they kind of disintegrate or become like very hostile, or the games crumble. And I think Sam had a lot of grit to like every time he's like, I'm going to come back. I'm going to make a play, whether it's I need to reconcile with Andy, whether it's I need to make a challenge, whether it's I need to now win a food reward and get the right number of people to come with me. I respect that as a person. I always hated when people say, there's nothing I could have done because this and this happened. Like this every single time in Survivor, a lot can change in 24 hours. And someone was one of those people really like grabbed it and said, well, I'm going to make my own destiny in this game. And I respect that. I like that a lot from him.
Yeah, I think the ways that he said find a way to find a way, the ways that he found were, again, really difficult to see because they were more subtle and strategic, and also because they were being hidden from us in the edit. Truly, when I read that article the night before the finale where he said how much he'd already thought of Operation Italy, I was like, he's losing at the end to Rachel, because they would have shown that if he's going to win. And if anything, they can't build that up against her because, again, the fandom won't understand that even if he had done that, putting Rachel ahead of him and then sitting next to her makes it an unwinnable game. Which should be obvious, I think, because I think like a lot of the people complaining about, Sam, and I haven't seen a lot of it, but if a lot of people complaining about Sam losing to Rachel, if the genders were swapped in the archetype, I don't think any of those people would say anything about Sam winning in Rachel's archetype. And literally, it's actually such an interesting exercise in like gender-based discourse because they are literally playing across type, which, and if you're still complaining that the man, lost, or it's like, that's usually like you would love this game to win as a fan for the people saying it, if that makes sense. But yeah, I love what I love about Sam as a character is that he has like the bravado in the water when he's like going to fire and he's like puts on this front, but like really he's talking in confessional about how he's so scared and he doesn't want to look stupid, and he's actually just this like young guy who's like got a soft heart, and he's like the jock that looks like a theater kid, like he is the Troy Bolton that we spoke about from the preseason. And I really, really love that from a character perspective. And I think from a player perspective, like all of those things are things I enjoy, like the little moves he's spoken about in X interviews. The fact that he had Andy as an emotional shield basically after Operation Italy because people would be mad at him. You can say, I said, oh, well, Andy went above him and he didn't do it. But in knowing that he had Andy as that shield, if Sue's pushing that out of revenge, he is controlling that to a degree. Maybe less on the Sierra vote, but there is some level of control there. I think that there's a lot of moves there that he's making that are just like really subtle and strategic. And I think that he was really, really good. I mean, he spoke to it so well, I think, at Final Tribal Council. I'm going to throw out some of these kind of debates for you and where do you sit on it? Because like one of the big things was Genevieve's idol, because he was like, we bluffed you with that. And she was like, well, we were always going to vote for Genevieve. I think that was a big thing on bluffing the idol. Like who wins that kind of battle for you on some of these like intricacies?
That was so funny for me. That was such a funny moment because they make up this idol, right? And then like everybody's convinced. And then he goes back and it's like, guys, the idol's fake. And they're like, you did this once, why are we going to believe you now? So that was such. It's weird that most of the times it goes the opposite way. You go like, hey, listen, I have an idol. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, really, I have this idol. I found it. I'm like, yeah, you're lying, man. This is the other one. It's like, it's not an idol. Like, no, we know it is. Like, it's really not an idol.
Yeah. So, it was confusing for them.
So it was quite good seeing it the other way around. I think it's one of those things where I think you need to kind of see what happened and then just take it apart and look at it differently. Like they had this plan in Operation Italy, like so many things, like dominoes had to knock each other over for it to work, and then it did work. And I think you had to kind of wrap it up and say, okay, that's Operation Italy. The mission was a success. Put it in the box, and then you say, okay, now what? Let's see what happened now. I don't think you should kind of confuse the two because whatever happens afterwards, they had to do Operation Italy to get into that position. So it's not like they made a mistake. They did every single thing right. And I think she just kind of leveraged the idol afterwards.
Yeah.
And then he tried to stop it.
Well, that, yeah. That's,
and
yeah.
Then, yeah, and then, I mean, she still got voted out, right?
Well,
at 6. So
yeah, well, I think that this is the thing, is like, it was so defensive, like that, and that's the defense, is that, oh, we bluffed you with the idol, and like they bluffed to the split on 7. Although she said if she was vulnerable, she would have played her vote block. But it's like, that's the thing, it's like, you bluffed it, but I was immune. Like, it wasn't going to be me. I saved myself in my perfect defensive game. And if I hadn't saved myself, I would have still had the vote block. And that would have been my other defense, while she also did have numbers. And then even at 5, she's like, oh, we had the numbers that would have ricocheted on you because we split it. I spoke about it last week. That split didn't make sense. Like, yeah, if they were bluffing it, if there was a real idol, like, they could have ricocheted onto Teeny. So it's not about like having the numbers to split, because they didn't. But also, I guess at this point, they both wanted Genevieve out, but also Rachel's immune, right? So it's like, even like at that point, it's like, oh, well, if Genevieve, I didn't care if Genevieve was lying, because I was going to make it through and I'm going to win out to the end, and I was going to sit here with my many, many immunity wins. So I think that's the thing for me, is like, well, we bluffed Genevieve's idol. Like, if I were her, I would say, like, I didn't really mind. Like, I wanted Genevieve out. I was always voting for Genevieve. I was hoping she would go, and if she didn't, anyone else could go, and I would beat anyone at the end. I guess you could say, well, I mean, like, yeah, if Genevieve had an idol, there's nothing they can do about it, and that's a harder immunity competitor. But like, at every point, I think the defense is, but I defended myself in my perfect defensive game. Whatever bluff or what, like, I was still going to be there and survive to this point to talk about it. And I think that for me is the bigger thing than whether they believe Genevieve or not. Because I said last week, it doesn't really matter whether she believes Genevieve. She should be voting for Genevieve anyway, on the 1% chance that Genevieve goes home. And if Teeny gets ricocheted out, or if somehow there's a split vote with Sam, which, wouldn't happen if they were working together, then Sam, whatever, either way, take the shot at Genevieve, and if she goes, she goes. And if not, I'm here anyway. I'm here.
I mean, that's one of the mega things about this season, which I actually liked, was the moment Jeff went Akio shot him a dogs and just grabbed all of them in, and they were out of the game. I think that was kind of way better, because now it's not like, oh, he's going to play shot him a dog, it's not going to be swim a dog. Then they had to come up with other ways, and like, oh no, I'm making fake idols, which just shows you if you just let the people play, they'll make up these things on their own. You don't need to give them, like, everybody a dice roll to get this kind of gameplay. And on top of that, because there were no shot him a dogs. I mean, I know Rachel played hers earlier, fair. But because they want to shot of a dogs, people are a lot more like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm sorry, bad news, it is you tonight. And then people kind of knew what was going to happen. So they kind of made plans and then kind of fooled the game. So in a weird way, I think the shot of a dogs getting taken out of a game in a weird way kind of spiced up all these other plans, which made it a lot more exciting than some of this very elaborate strategy we see to just get rid of a shot in the dogs.
Yeah. Well, the final 7 would have been the last time to play the shot in the dark, and I'm so glad there wasn't a subplot of Operation Italy of like whether Genevieve's too scared to even go in on the 3-2-2 and play the shot in the dark. Like, those votes only work perfectly with the 1 vote slim majority, because everyone voted and we all knew they were voting, and we could now 3-2-2 it. Although if Sam played a shot in the dark, again, he couldn't. He could have at 7, and if he got it wrong, he could have said, well, I didn't vote incorrectly. I see you, Sam. I see you with the vote blocks. But yeah, I mean, on Sam generally, I thought that he was great too. I thought it was an interesting battle. What do you think about Carl voting for Sam?
I thought he was going to get 2 votes. I thought he was going to get 2 votes. I thought he was going to get Sarah's vote, and then I thought he was going to get Carl's vote, because I think they were kind of both doing this. They were both these like big broy guys, like talking about the challenges or whatever. And I think Kyle saw a kind of competitor in Sam, which not that I'm saying Rachel isn't a competitor, not at all. But I think they had that kind of connection of like, yeah, we are the two. It's just interesting because Kyle's 31 and Sam's 24, so that means a 7-year delta between them. The way they kind of bonded on the island, you would think they were kind of like in different frat bros or whatever. So yeah, and I mean, it's something I talk about all season. Like people are like, oh, what the hell you vote for Nicole? I'm like, what? I mean, my vote I can do with what I want. But I always say in our season, I've said it many times, I think a 6-4-0, somebody who's been there and somebody who's watched it, I think it's a good representation of, I think, the games that we played. I think if Rachel won 9 or 8-0-0, I think 7-1-0 is maybe a good representation of the season. I don't think Carl made a mistake. I think I think it's a representation of the season. I think Rachel played the better game of the 3 finalists, but I don't think Sam's game was bad enough that she gets 0 votes. I think 1 or 2 votes is from what I saw on the couch. I mean, Saul said this, like I wrote it down. He said, we're all criticizing on TV, and then you get there and you're like, oh, you don't know shit. That's his words. And I think it's the same way. Yeah, we weren't there, but for sitting on the couch, I think 7-1-0 from what I saw, it's a fair reflection of the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I do think like he's entitled to vote for whoever he wants to. For me, that's the first thing. Like he seemed to have an important social relationship with Sam. I want to talk about this firstly before just talking about a video I saw right before we came on, where Carl explains some of his vote. But in terms of like him voting for Sam, and again, like how much you believe of what he's saying now versus like he said he was really close with Sam. I don't know what else he's going to say in the after show. Yeah, I mean, I think that he is entitled to that relationship. I think that there's something interesting around the fact that like Carl did have a lot of these bro-y relationships, which is also valid. Maybe, not as much of something I would not respect or like, but like factor in as like the fact that like that, women's alliance, I feel like, when you're like fighting against something, which the women's alliances often try to and fail to, but like even like, some like minority alliances, I feel like that's different to kind of like broing out. But again, this is what social relationships will lean to. That's why the diversity initiative is so important, because like will see like. And I feel like for Carl, he's entitled to that relationship. I just think it's something that's interesting to note. I also think that like, again, like as a threat, Carl was there in the threats at the time with like Genevieve, Sam, and himself, which actually I credit Rachel for a lot. So much through the mid game that she was like the top of the underdogs while Sam was in the biggest threat group is actually like, I credit Rachel for that disparity. But, Carl said that. Sam's talking about how he got votes, which maybe you would see as a knock against you, but he has to like build up that he was a threat who Rachel also couldn't get out like she was. So I think that's impressive. So I think, I think he's totally entitled to vote for her. I actually said this on Twitter. I always want everyone to get a vote. Just for like the fact that I know how traumatic 0 votes is, and like my bleeding heart is like, I want everyone to get a vote. Like for me, a 6-1-1 does not matter to an 8-0. I don't need the unanimous victory for the stats. I'd so much rather someone feels a little bit like affirmed in their game. Just like even the way Cassidy went to James and was like, did you vote for me? Like the meaning of that to have some acknowledgement of how difficult this is something I prefer. But this is what Kyle said. I think it was in a cameo video that was posted to Twitter. He said he knew that Rachel would win. He thought Rachel should win. He likes them both, but he wanted to give Sam second place because he thought Sam's game was better than Sue. I don't know how much that was on like the Sue thing. I mean, look, honestly, if Luke comes third for that relationship with Kyle, which I do think she had a big part to play, and I can't say that it was 100% on her because, again, I think the edit showed it one way and I wasn't in that dynamic. But like, yeah, that was a really bad social dynamic that like maybe they both have to wear, and as a juror, he can make her wear that. And that actually would fit. And I also think he's entitled to do that. But he's saying that that's what he did. He did the second place vote. He did the Monica Culpepper over Jervis vote for Sam.
Yeah. No, you're right. Everybody can vote for who they want to. I haven't seen that the clip, but I know. I mean, it's like a lot of.
I think it was a very niche clip. I don't know how I happened to see it, but yeah, that is what he said.
Okay. No, but it's interesting because I mean I think that was one of the big. I think wasn't that one of like the big conversation points at Winners at War where so many people wanted to give Michelle votes because they thought she deserved second place, but they knew that there was like the whole thing between Tony and they didn't want to make sure that Tony lost, so that they gave Tony's vote. So yeah, I
think also jurors want to be right maybe, and they want to like feel like they're a part. So there's so much that goes into it. You just think in a perfect world, I would love for no one to ever get 0 votes again because it just is heartbreaking. But like, I think Carl's entitled to do what he wants with that vote. And I don't think anything's particularly bad on voting for Sam at all.
I have an opinion about Carl, not personally opinion, but about his game in Survivor. Okay. I've said this many times, and I've spoken about this, how tribes who lose early like go to tribal 2 or 3 or 4 times, and then kind of you get to tribal 6 or tribal 8 or whatever, and you lose 2, 3 people, and you get like to that really small point. How those small core people usually make very deep runs and get to the end and do well, because you learn how to fight and build the social connections, and you learn how to scheme and wheel and deal and whatever. And I mean, if you see this season, I mean, they lost John, they lost John, right? And then they lost Annika pretty much, and then kind of, they all got to the end. Well, they all got to the end. You have Sam and Rachel. And then if you look at the lava guys, they lost Asia, Sean, and Rome, and then they like Genevieve and Teeny were really good. Even though Teeny was out of those, she was really good at kind of scrambling and making sure she gets to the end all the time. Now, Tuku went to tribal second. They voted out Tuku. They voted out TK. Tuku went to tribal second. Voted out TK, and then they didn't go ever again, right? And I think if you think about, maybe I'm wrong. I'm just trying to imagine, because Carl is this kind of, I see him almost as this younger version of Keith, this kind of very friendly, good at carnival games, country guy who's just like, he doesn't overthink life. He's just fun to be around. I think had he been in the tribe that went to tribal 3 or 4 times, like let's just say the 2 of them comes out, he would have been so gritty and be like, I need to make votes. I need to make this connection. I need to find a way. And then you get into merge of only the 2 of you, and you go like, okay, there's only 2 of us. We need to make a plan. And then you start roping in people and being a lot more strategic and thinking about what's going to happen, not just what's going to happen this, but we need to think long term. There's only 2 of us. How do we get more people? And I think that's the type of games where these type of players do really well in these seasons, rather, is if they lose a lot, but they are still physical threats and they can navigate through to the end. Because I think now what happened is they went once and then got complacent. He was chilling in the hammock, making all these connections, and just like, and then he goes to tribal, and then he said, he goes to the challenges and tells Jeff, the moment I don't win immunity is the moment I'm going home. And he's not wrong, but he didn't kind of focus on all the other stuff. So it's just such a very interesting phenomena for me, where, I mean, I'm using Carl now as an example, but you see it so many times in the season, in this, especially the new era, about tribes who don't go to tribal council often or early. You think, we go with this big majority into the merge, but they're not battle hardened, they're not pressure tested, and they don't learn that skill set early on, and they struggle to kind of navigate the merge and make it to the end. So it's a small sample size, but it's just an observation I've seen a lot over in Survivor, but I think it's to some of these players' detriment.
Well, I don't think that's true of Kyle, though, because I feel like Kyle is not a very innovative player. Like, Kyle is on the bottom and still doesn't put his hand in the bag to go for the vote block. Like, I don't know how much he could have been trained in the pre-merge, basically. And I think it is an interesting comparison, because I think if we're going to talk about defensive games and Kyle's going to win a lot of immunities until he goes home, I think that is the one note defensive game, which again, to me, is very different. Like, comparing that to the fact that then Rachel's going to take the baton of winning immunities, but then she also has shields as an out. She's so aware of her game. She also is adding all these other elements. She's maximizing it to its effect. Kyle jumped on, like, I think just the soul vote, and then otherwise, like, used up his shield with Gabe. He didn't think, if he was thinking more innovatively, he would think, okay, let me, even when I'm immune, keep more shields in, keep Gabe as a shield. I think that what he lacked in all of that, like, obviously he just had on the pathway of immunities. And I think it's interesting to compare it to the other immunity challenge beast in the season, who was Rachel. And I think when you make that comparison to at least someone in the season, if it's too much on Mike and Ben, you see that she was the, like, fully formed defensive player. If they're both being defensive at different points in the game, she had a lot more that she was giving to that. In so many different ways. And I think that makes the disparity pretty clear when we're saying, like, the ranking is way higher than these other defensive players, because it's just in the way that she did it. Because I don't think Kyle can win immunities just like Rachel can, but I don't think he can do the other things. And I think we see that disparity in the fact that she goes and gets, the vote block, and then she uses all these things so well, and she's considering shields and stuff the whole time, and she's kind of like leaning into the threat level when she needs to and then protecting, whereas Carl was just like really on the back foot. That's a defensive game, but it's like fighting for your life in a way that just had nothing to build from it, in a way that Rachel, I think, really did.
I just want to mention, I know you have talked about this, but that challenge about for the block vote.
Yes. Oh my god.
What an epic challenge!
Ruined my life.
What a
ruined
great
my
design.
life, Jacques. It's over. No, my life's over, Jacques. Like genuinely, I don't think you understand. How many weeks ago was that?
4 or 5 weeks ago.
No, it wasn't. It was like what, 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Level 281 of Water Sword. Water Sword. It got me back into Water Sword, which is an addictive phone game where you have to put the colors back in the thing, and I genuinely can't stop. 281. Why? I don't. It's a drug.
When did you get your Wordle first time? Was it between like last time we spoke? I remember some you posted like you got a Wordle.
That was the best part of my year, by the way, when I got Wordle in one.
Yeah.
That was in like September maybe, or maybe like October. Yeah.
What was the word you had? What was the word?
It was cloud.
Cloud. Is that your starting word?
Not anymore, but yeah, it was every day. It was crazy. Do you actually want to hear the story on the brief tangent of when I got Wordle in one?
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me.
Okay. Every night at midnight, Peter and I do Wordle together and then connections, okay? But sometimes Peter goes to sleep because he's a responsible person, and I'm up till 3 a.m. now playing Water Sword. Not at the time. But, so then sometimes I get so excited, so I just put in cloud because I just want to see what will happen. And like also Peter and I have like jump off words. If there was like just one yellow O, I might do point like I might go do the jump off words just because I'm so excited to do Wordle and I don't want to wait till he comes home from work the next day. So I put in cloud and then it turned green and I yelled. And because I was next to him in bed, he got woken as well. And then I was like, oh my God, I got Wordle in one without you. And he missed it. And he was not pleased, Jacques. He wasn't pleased, but I was so excited to do it. And I got it in one. And he was unhappy, but I was like, don't be unhappy. This is the coolest thing that's ever happened to us. Okay. I'm so glad you asked. It was literally the best thing that ever happened to me. Thank you.
I'm very happy.
Other than the draft win. Yeah.
I mean, I don't Wordle all the time, but my Wordle word always used to be horse. And then I checked, there's like this website that shows you all the words I ever started. And then horse, I saw one day was actually the word of the day.
That would have been nice. And yeah, we do it every day. We don't miss, so that's why.
Yeah,
sorry, you were saying about the challenge before I started talking about Water Sword?
No, I was saying the challenge is quite epic about that whole thing, like being like spooling, unspooling, and then falling into the water. That was such an epic kind of challenge design. I don't know who came up with that, but such a mega cool challenge. We've never seen something like that. But then the most bizarre thing is, like, it drags the whole like table into water. So what if you like have your hand in and stuck, or like
well, that's good. Yeah,
your bracelet gets caught and we go, oh, sorry, this guy's overboard it.
Well, the stakes are high. You better practice your Water Sword
so we can get this person out of the water.
Yeah, well, that's why you got to practice Water Sword. I genuinely that was fun, but like I need an intervention on Water Sword. So, and I paid $8 to get fewer ads. Not even to get no ads. It didn't even work. I still have some ads. Let's just play it. I just wait for the ads. I get freaking junky.
Do you have a New York Times subscription, or do you only do Wordle and Connections?
I only do Wordle and Connections. I don't. I get New York Times articles a different way, through less paid means. Sometimes. Okay.
Because I've recently started doing it, and I'm playing that the one with you have to get like the spanogram, it's called, or whatever. With the letters, that's quite cool.
Yeah, I get that as an ad sometimes during when I'm playing Water Sword.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you should download Water Sword though. It's so good. It's so good. Anyway, it's fine. This isn't an ad for Water Sword. It has enough ads, but
I mean,
yeah. Okay. Well, is there anything else? Should we get to the Chizy? I want to talk about the Rome X interview controversy, but I'm happy to do it after the Chizy. I don't know if there's anything.
Yeah, we can do. I'm just checking a few of my notes. No shot in the dark. Yeah, I think that said everything. The one thing that's not really, it's not. I mean, I just made note, and I think I want to mention it. I think what I liked about this season is a lot of the time we have all these kind of personal flashbacks, like the origin story of every single player. We didn't have it once this season, so I think we did have like in-season flashbacks, but it was survivor related, and I felt that was kind of refreshing. I know, Jeff and then go back and forth about should we put it in or whatever. But I find it kind of refreshing that the only stuff we saw was survivor related. There was very little kind of, oh, this is my story about how I got X, Y, and Z, diagnosed with this or whatever. And we just like watched the game within the context of survivor. Not that I'm saying we should diminish anything else. I just felt like a lot of this past seasons, that was kind of one of the recurring themes. And it was good to kind of just have a season where it was just about survivor. And I think this, even though we have now 2-hour episodes or 90-minute episodes, whatever. I think like the production people have started filling it in with kind of these flashbacks, and I think just letting the people play Survivor without shooting the dogs actually makes compelling enough TV. I don't know why they don't understand. I don't know why the production people keep trying to. I know that, like Jeff said, it's they're kind of here and then they go underground and they do a lot of things and they decide and they pop up again. And you kind of have the audience have to catch up with what they've decided during off season to get to. I get that, but I just felt it'd be quite refreshing to just play Survival without all these flashbacks and just let the game be front and center.
But interestingly, I think what people have said as a bit of a gap is that like we didn't know that much about Rachel beyond the game as a winner. Like I think less compared to a lot of other people, but then also that as you're saying, I think that's a really good point. That was true across the board this season. Like even the people who had big journey edits like Andy and Teeny, it was very much in game. I'm trying to think like Kyle's the family man, but like who really stands out to you is like having a big personal story.
But
like
see,
I feel like it was all very game based.
I know people say they don't like it, I understand all the logistical reasons, all the casting reasons why they don't want to do themes, but that's the advantage of themes. You're like, okay, we have heroes, healers, and hustlers. I get it. This person is a hustler. That's what he has to do in his life. So
much Ben talks this podcast.
Sorry?
Yeah. So much Ben talks this podcast. The hero, healer, hustler.
Exactly. So just having kind of a theme, even if it's just millennials versus Gen X, like here's a bunch of young people, here's a bunch of old people. And then you play the game. You don't have to horseshoe the theme into every single conversation, but at least you kind of in your mind, you just like put one, what's a plucker in English? What's it called? Like a label or what I think you put on what Ross write, Dr. Ross, what's like a tag?
A label.
Like a tag.
Oh yeah, name tag.
Yeah, let's just one tag which you put on your mind and like, okay, this is the Brain versus Brawn season. Okay, he's in the Brain tribe. I get it. So anyway. Bit of a tangent, but
I'm partial to the backstories. I like a lot of the personal content. I thought the season could have pushed it a little more, but now that I'm realizing, like, not just for Rachel, like across the board, it was pretty low on personal content, but there was so much game personal content, like Genevieve, all that stuff was like in the game. I do think that was an interesting way to go about it, and it was compelling in its own way. I do love a backstory, but like, yeah, it's quite unique as a season from that, because I'm really looking at it and struggling to find a contestant who had a big backstory or some big out of game thing.
With John and Asia, they're like, we are podcasters, and like, I know you're a podcaster. So that's like this whole thing in the beginning, and I thought they were kind of now they're going to tell everybody's story, and then we just stopped like after 2 people.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like they always have to come in and talk about their traumas, and like, yeah, I'm a podcaster. I think that's a very fair trauma. So that would be my trauma. Okay, let's do the Chizy. Take it away, Jacob.
Are we now doing Where Good Things Go and talking about the Chizy?
Yes, and I've got some controversial takes on it. Take it away, Jacob Sega Weinstein and MC Kala.
1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's getting kind of Chizy. 3, 2, 1.
All right.
This is better. This is better because usually when we do this, like peeking behind the curtain, you just say we're going to do the Chizy, and then you cut, and then we drink water, and then we come back, and then it gets added in afterwards, post production. Now with a live feed, I actually get to groove along with the tune. So I like this version better.
It was really easy to always put the music in. It was one button. I just didn't know how to do it, and I never bothered to learn. Jacques, I'm going to rig the Chizy.
Are you going to rig it? Okay. You shouldn't have showed me this.
I'm going to rig the Chizy. Oh my God, I can't. I'm feeling anxious about it. I decided to rig the Chizy. Okay. Do you want me to explain that, or do you want to give your points before I rig the Chizy?
Explain what you want to say. I have a question. What happens in the event of a draw? That's my question.
In the event of a tie, everyone wins. That's what we decided last year when Drew and Dee did tie.
Okay.
Yes. So that's the way that we went about it. And then everyone would have to get mugs, which Rob would have to pay for. And okay, here's where we're at in the Chizy, right? Genevieve's on 25 points. If Rachel gets 6 points, which I assume you're going to give her 3, I'd be shocked if you don't, and I'd probably be upset. But if she gets 6 points and she's on 25, but Sam is on 22 points. So Sam could still get 4 for being, I think, pretty clearly the second best player in the episode. He had a great final tribal council, I think even slightly even better than Rachel's. Final Tribal Council, wins fire. Again, he'd be a solid winner if he could get Rachel out, but he didn't get Rachel out. But if he gets 2 points from me and 2 points from you, he's going to win the Chizy on 1 point, even though obviously he did not win the game. Or if you give him 2 points, I could give him 1 point and I could make a 3-way Chizy tie. And I'm going to do it. So I'm going to do it.
I believe in the sanctity of a Chizy.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be in a position where I need to compromise this thing we've been doing.
I'm not asking you to. I'm not asking.
Yes.
I'm happy to get my hands dirty.
So
like
if you are willing to take the fallout,
debase myself
and take the hit, I am now putting in a disclaimer that I am washing my hands in innocence.
No, you're complicit. You're here right now.
I will go first,
okay.
And then I am not.
You know what I'm going to do.
In any way implicated in this blasphemous decision that is being made about the Chizy. So I will go first. Okay.
Yeah.
This is very dramatic, but I will go first. Yes, I will give 1 Chizy point to. No, I'll stop with 3. I'll give 3 to Rachel.
Yeah,
she won.
Right. Yeah.
Spoke about it at length.
Yeah.
There's not too much to say. I will give, as you predicted, 2 to Sam. I think, like you said, he made fire. He came second. Would be a crime not to. Then, I mean, there's 4 people left.
There's 2 people.
And then I have to give my final one. I'm giving it to Teeny. I think had Sue done a bit more with the idol, maybe you could have made a case. But I think Teeny was preseason my winner pick. So I'm not. That's not why I am giving her the Chizy. Not the reason why. But I think she had a compelling arc. And I know a lot of people online complain about game bots, and then now they're saying she's emotional and this and that. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So people at home should just watch the game and not say negative stuff about people if they don't like them. You can just keep your negative opinion to yourself. Hurt people, so don't. So that's why I give my 3 to 1 is Rachel, Sam, and Teeny. So I don't know if you want to update the spreadsheet, and then
I can't update it in real time, but we can. Well, so here's I want to explain something first up, all right? Because I texted my brother and I said, I'm gonna rig the Chizy. People have been messaging me saying, I think we should you rig the Chizy? And he was like, how do you live with yourself? And I was like, hey, you think it's easy doing the Chizy? Okay.
Maybe it's the crown. We spoke about it, right?
Exactly. You think it's easy being, and you think it's all fun and games. I was like, you don't want to know how the sausage gets made, but you're happy to eat the hot dog. Everyone's okay with a 3-way Chizy tie because that's so fun and exciting and it feels right. But when I have to come in and rig the Chizy, I'm the bad guy. I'm the crazy person. And he was like, I don't even recognize you right now. And anyway, I won't bore you with the back and forth. But my point is, I want to maintain a relationship with my brother, but I care more about getting the 3-way Chizy tie. And the reasons that I've retconned this to make sense for me is, firstly, the Chizy does have gaps. Is it perfect? We've said this whole time. Earlier in the season, I said the Chizy is not perfect, okay? There are gaps. Here are the gaps. Genevieve's edit in the first 3 episodes was atrocious. He definitely gets 3 points. Looking at it now, she got 2 points. So she should have got 6 points. She got 2 points because of the edit. So that is already, probably Genevieve would have run away and won had we known how good she was on early lava. We didn't know that. Sam, to be fair, the gap in the Chizy, Randy Newpel, who does the charts, went and looked and said, because when we have 3 people, we do a 2-1-1. And there's a worse one and a better one, and he had 1 better one. So he'd actually be 1 point ahead of where he's even at if it was in a regular 3-2-1, if those were points. Anyway, it's hard to game it when there's 3 people, but that's a little bit of a numerical issue. Then, Rachel's got these big swings where she individually wins. As well as Sam did in this episode, the second he lets Rachel win immunity, his only job is to make sure Rachel doesn't win immunity and then doesn't win fire. He immediately wins immunity. That's a loss for everyone. Is he 2/3 as good as her when she's won it in the first 10 minutes? I don't think so. So I do think that makes sense. I think, at the point where he's even trying to argue, you wanted me out. It's not the same thing. She was first, you were second. She'd prefer if second was out, but you needed first out. And the game was lost at that point. He did as best as he could, and it was still a 7-1 loss. So is he 2/3 as good as her? I think not. So I've also come up with some stuff for why I'm going to give 2 points to Teeny. Firstly, 3 points to Rachel. That puts her on 25 with Genevieve now, tying at the top. And how much of a travesty if that rivalry wasn't cemented in a Chizy win, in a tie Chizy win. 2 points to Teeny for me. Firstly, I love Teeny so much. And I genuinely think this isn't necessarily a game thing, but the way that Teeny spoke to their own projections about how they were projecting on Sam and was so vulnerable in that, and on a global stage, put up a spotlight to their own insecurities and weaknesses, I think most people wouldn't do. As a human, as a young human, I think it's phenomenal. And I think the way that Sam has received that and given so much grace is also phenomenal. And for 2 young people, I think that they are exceptional. I say young, they're like 7 years younger than me. But anyway, it's tough on a global stage, and I don't think most people could do that at any age. So I'm super impressed with that. I think as well, like, we were pretty hard on Teeny in the last few weeks, falling for Operation Italy. But even hearing from some of the exits, there are still gaps that Teeny clearly thought that they were getting one over on Genevieve and Sam in Operation Italy, or maybe didn't consider that Genevieve would even consider a split. But the way that they were talking, like Sam has spoken about the relationship with Teeny then, like I see how Teeny thought they were like a proxy in like what ended up being the Andy spot to Genevieve and Sam. So we were hard. Not that I would have ever given Teeny points. I think that was cool, but I just want to say, we get a lot of information from the exits after the finale, and I see how Teeny was judging those relationships and those working relationships, even though I do also judge Teeny for thinking that they were like single-handedly getting one over on Genevieve and Sam without thinking that they would think there'd be a split and would be trying to like be like, well, what's happening with the split? And anyway, there's a lot there. This was weeks ago. But anyway, I'm giving 2 points to Teeny on a human and a rich level. Then 1 point I'm giving to Sam. So now Sam is in the time with Genevieve and with Rachel. And do we feel good about it? Am I spiraling? Is this okay? Is this fine?
Listen, Shannon.
Yeah.
I've watched The Sopranos. I've watched Breaking Bad. I've seen Tony Soprano justify his actions to his wife, all the other people. I've seen Walter White trying to justify saying what he's doing is for his family, even though he keeps killing people after he's made more money than he needs. So you can do whatever justification you want. I'm watching my hands in innocent. You can do whatever justification you want. Yes, you paid the Chizy. I gave my points in good faith, as an honest survivor.
If you want Sam over Rachel, but then I'll rig it again. I'm going to do the math. I'll keep rigging.
But if you told me if I did the opening podcast and I gave my Chizys, and then we get to the end, and then legit. Or unaltered way, doesn't matter. You say there was a 3-way tie this season between Genevieve, Sam, and Rachel. I would say, well deserved. Good representation of the season. I think they each deserve a Chizy Cup. That's good. Well done. So I'm not happy.
Exactly.
I'm happy with the outcome.
Right. Oh, you eat the hot dog.
The outcome.
But you don't want to see how the sausage gets made. Yep.
So I'm happy with the outcome.
You agree? You agree with what's been done?
With the outcome.
Yeah. But not how it was done. But it's unfortunate to have to be the person rigging the Chizy, okay? It's unfortunate to give up my integrity. All of that stuff is not great. It's not, right? It's not. But I think that it makes sense to have this 3-way tie, right? And can I say as well?
Has there ever been a 3-way tie?
No, there was only one 2-way tie a year ago. And we're going to send out a ton of mugs to the point where literally 1/6 of the cast is getting mugs. Nothing has meaning, but it feels right and it's good. Sam's game was great. Rachel's a great winner. Genevieve, baller. All of them will get mugs. And I think that and also, one more thing, and how I justified it for myself.
Yes.
Teeny, to be fair, is better at fire than we gave them credit for. And is one win blow away from, I think, $100,000. I think Sol at least votes for Teeny. And I thought, Sam has confirmed in exits that he didn't position the fire any which way to protect against the wind. So one gust of wind is what separates Teeny and Sam from possibly being in the 7-1 position. So does it really matter? Have I done enough to wash my hands of this, or is it still not okay?
I mean, we'll leave it over. We'll see what people say. My Twitter blows up and I get notifications.
People will love this. People will be so happy.
All the YouTube chat, because now it's video as well. So we'll
I don't
read
check
the
those
comments.
I don't read them.
Do you not read them, or do you read them?
No, I don't read YouTube comments. I try not to read anything that isn't sent directly to me. Although sometimes people do send mean things to me directly, but like, I don't need to see what people say about me when I'm not meant to be listening. I've done a lot of work in therapy for that. I actually got over that addiction, checking the comments about myself. And now I need to get over my addiction to water sort. So I think if I can get over that, I can probably.
When are you going to get over your Wordle addiction, Shannon?
Never, ever. I said that to Peter a few months ago. I said, are we just going to do Wordle every day until we die? And I hope we do. It's the highlight of my day, Jacques.
There's not going to be words left. You know, cloud's going to come around and be the word a second time.
There's not going to be words
You're going to have a different word, and it's going to be cloud, and you're going to be so disappointed when all the English words and the 5-letter vocabulary has been used, and you come back full circle, and you don't use cloud the second time it comes around.
Firstly, my other word might now come up, which would be good. How many 5-letter words are there in the... I can't type so fast. In the English language. I just Googled it. It's not coming up. This is good podcasting. Okay, I'm going to let you know when my phone updates. But anyway, 3-way Chizy tie.
3-way Chizy tie. There
are 158,000 5-letter words.
That can be your next word, 3.
That would be a terrible Wordle word. That would be so bad.
It's a terrible Wordle word, but I mean, sometimes these word comes up, and then you can say, I've had it. Shannon, can I share something with you? Can I present my screen?
No, actually. I don't know. You can you? I can't see it. Because that's not, you have to do share screen.
And yeah, wait. I just want to share this tab.
Okay, in the meantime, well done to, it's going to work. Well done to Genevieve, Rachel, and Sam Chizy winners. Okay, what are we looking at?
Are you looking at my screen?
Yeah.
That's a Wikipedia page.
Oh, it is.
Oh, you take it away.
Okay, good.
There we go. Okay. You know the band Linkin Park, right?
Yes.
Okay. Long story. I'm not going to give you the details, but it's my favorite band of all time.
Okay.
They made a new album. It's called From Zero.
That's nice.
I don't know if you know this.
I don't.
They've made a new album. After Chester Bennington died, they got this girl singing for them, Emily Armstrong. It is hardcore cool, really. Okay. It is mega. It is my favorite band of all time, and they made an album after nobody in the world thought they would make music again. I watched them live in London. It was insane. Mind-blowing experience watching them live. Okay.
I'm confused about where we're at.
Sorry?
I'm confused about what's happening.
You will see quite clearly. You mentioned to me that you once did a podcast with Rob where you mentioned all the Taylor Swift songs, and then afterwards he didn't care about you mentioning all the albums, and then he didn't care.
Yeah. Right? Oh, have you been doing it? Oh my God, Jacques!
So if you just scroll down the Wikipedia, here's the song list, the track list of the album. I'll scroll in slightly if you cannot see it. Okay. I have in this podcast, because there wasn't that much strategy, I had to find some other way to make it interesting.
We got to a lot.
I've used all of these songs in the podcast.
Yeah.
It means I gave you everything everything I had. It's I didn't say IGYEIH. I just said I gave everything I had, which is what they say in the song.
You said the emptiness machine?
I did. I said it wasn't what season Gabriel won, season 43. I said this wasn't the emptiness machine of season 43.
Oh, and I laughed at that. But I didn't think there was anything wrong with that because I was like, that is some way that someone might refer to that season. That wasn't empty though. Okay, the Cody bit was very good. So
I'm just saying. I don't know if you are going to impress. You said Rob wasn't impressed, and you mentioned all the Taylor Swift songs.
Jacques,
but I mentioned every single album, every single song from this album.
I wear my tiara.
Sorry?
I'm wearing my tiara, and you thought you'd get one over on me. I'm the queen this week.
No, it's not getting you. I was just saying that because the last time we did the Taylor Swift thing, and there was a musical element to it, and we couldn't do it again. So I just wanted to know that this album is cool if you like Linkin Park and this kind of rap and rock music. And just in terms of not having so much strategy to focus on, I kind of give myself a new objective this episode is to see how many of these songs, can I do it in order? And if you would, I'm glad you didn't know the album because you would have maybe picked up on it.
I don't think so. No.
But anyway.
I think you should have had to say Igya.
Igya. Do you know what, Shannon? IGYEIH. Oh, sorry, my internet lagged. I'm back now.
Well, honestly, I mean, good for you getting into the podcast. I was also subtly plugging Water Sort, but that also was, I think, pretty impossible to tell for the audience. It's over 2 hours into this podcast, by the way. And I also wanted to talk about Rome's spoiler controversy.
Oh,
I don't know if I'm not finished know-it-alls. I don't know if they speak about it on know-it-alls, but have you heard of this?
I've seen some of it. Like I said, we moved from London, so I've been focusing on other things, but I've seen it. I've seen that somebody leaked spoilers, but I don't have the full 1, 2, 3 of a situation.
Okay, what happened was, for the people who aren't chronically online, again, I wish I was you. Even when not the jurors of this season who were chronically online, for other people. So yeah, for those people, Rome did an interview, his interview with Gordon Holmes, and Gordon does word association, and usually it's like Sierra, nice, John Lovett, smart, whatever. But Rome was like, I've met everyone, I was on the pre-jury trip and I was at the merge, so I can do everybody. And then Gordon was like, okay, we'll just read out your list. And Rome's list was in an order where he kind of worked his way up from like the beginning of the jury. I think it was from Sierra, and then went back to John Lovett and worked his way back, and then went back to Rachel and worked his way up from Rachel, other than mixing up just Kyle and Caroline. And people started working out. Once Caroline didn't go home, it actually kind of ruined the spoiler, but then people started working out that it was a spoiler, and it was. I have a lot of thoughts on this, but because I do exit interviews for the internationals, and I've had it on many sides of the spectrum where in the UK, they were very stringent, which actually maybe, typecast. They were like, cut this out, it's a spoiler. And I was like, ooh, that kind of spoils me. Like, why is that a spoiler? And then it wouldn't happen. And I was like, hey, that was overly cautious. But then I also have had an Australian Survivor, I've had a player just spoil so much stuff. I was like, what does he think is happening right now? He was like, yeah, because they're about to win immunity. I was like, what do you think is happening? And then I'll just tell you who it was. It was Andrew on Brains versus Brawn. But anyway, he gets so many spoilers. Like, if you hear the raw footage of that interview, I'm like, screaming internally. And then immediately the PR called me and we're like, can we cut it? I'm like, yeah. Oh, we'll cut it out when he spoiled everything. So
yeah,
this is a story I've never told. Basically, my point is I think that PR on the call should be responsible for that. I want to talk about how much you think Rome intended to spoil the whole season. But also then I'm like, do PR even know the boot order? It was a very unfortunate comedy of errors to get this to happen. But I feel bad for the people who were spoiled, because I went to check it out immediately after the season because I'd been avoiding it the plague. And I do feel bad for the people that were spoiled, but whose fault is it? Because this is not good.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when we did our exit stuff. That was now the days before working from online, whatever. We had drove up to Joburg and meet the people
you had to go to Joburg for the exits.
Yeah, I mean, they paid. I mean, they flew us up or whatever, so they paid the travel cost. But you had to go to Joburg to do the extra stuff. Yeah. And then I asked the one lady. I said, "Do you know? I mean, obviously you work in PR. Do you know who won?" She said, "No, I don't know who won. I just know the boot order. So I know who the final three is, but I don't know who won." So I don't know exactly if it's the same with the PR, but I mean, that's what I can say as a person who's done exit press. I asked him, and then she said she doesn't know when. She just knows the boot order. So I would expect the PR person to know the boot order at least. But in terms of spoilers, I've stopped listening to exit interviews for this reason, because we all think we are good at it, but it's inevitable at some point in time. Somebody would say you can sometimes pick up subconsciously, they'll say, oh, this person is really good. You will see later. And oh, okay, I'll see later.
Yeah,
really
I always
haven't done anything.
Someone says that.
Yeah, or they say oh, this person is so under-edited. They did so many things that you're not seeing, but just wait. Yeah. I'm like, are you serious right now? So I think some of the people do cut it out, but I'd be curious. I mean, I know Rob doesn't do his live. It'd be an interesting conversation to have with him. Ask him the off season, how many times has he been spoiled on upcoming stuff, and how many stuff has he had? Because I think it happens more than we think it does. If you say you have to cut stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't cut that much. I think it very rarely happens.
Yeah. I mean, I think it does happen, and I don't think a lot of the times it's malicious. I think it's just you think you said something which is cryptic enough, but there are people who listen and to every podcast, to every word, to every Reddit post, and then they kind of piece it together, and then they'll say, "Oh, it was so clear that X, Y, and Z wasn't gonna win because of how this played out." So yeah.
Well, I mean, as someone who does exits and I have done exits on now 3 different franchises, like I don't think people spoil that much. I think it's okay. I feel like I can be overly cautious on, like, you'll see kind of, and I'll usually cut that. But yeah, I mean, I think it usually is okay. The Andrew thing was crazy.
Wasn't there something on Australian Survivor where I can't remember which season it was, but somebody went out and it was kind of like when it was leaked, okay, these are people who are going out. And then within the time they were still filming, they were back in, like, making Twitter comments or something. And somebody said,
no, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, they'll post things like Abby came back from All Stars and was like commentating the grand final. I did my exit interview with Daisy, even though she'd just gone out to play All Stars, but she was out in the first week. That was the big one for me. Just doing that exit interview was an All-Star spoiler. But on Rome, I think everyone, people feel a certain type of way about Rome, so everyone assumes he did it on purpose. I don't know if I am naive and I give people the benefit of the doubt. I didn't feel like Rome was doing that because it's a word association. Like, he didn't come in intending to read his list start to finish. And from my perception, I don't think he offered to. I think that he's like, I have a whole list of people. We can do all the people. And Gordon was like, read the list. And I think he'd written out the list. And if I were to write out a season full of people while trying to remember everyone, I would also be working up in a boot order or maybe go by tribe. But I would, otherwise you feel like who was in it? Like 18 people is one thing, but like a list of people ordered in your mind is a way to remember everyone. For me, I don't blame him. I don't think it was malicious, but maybe I'm naive. I don't blame Gordon because Gordon could never. I mean, I think we've learned a valuable lesson about not letting people read lists out. I think I put it most on CBS if they knew the boot order, and if not, then it's just very unfortunate. You would think at least even after the interview, you'd be like, "Oh my God, cut that out or edit that," because that is the boot order that I had in front of me, had written that way, and then was like, "Oh no, that I just said it in the moment because I was like." On the spot in this interview. And now I'm thinking, wait, don't put that into the universe. You would think that would happen, but it didn't. So I think this might have been a special situation. I don't think that people should be off exit interviews forever, but I do think this was a very unfortunate thing to happen.
No, I agree with you. The PR person should be able to catch it. I mean, that's her job, right? Like I say, when we did exit press, I don't know if it's still there, but they're on the call with the person who's doing the interview, whatever. So at any point in time, they could interject and say stop the call or like drop a line or whatever.
Stop right there. Like, oh my God, he's reading the
stop right there.
Yeah, literally. Like at the point when Andrew was like, this happens, like genuinely, they didn't stop it. But I was like, what would we do if we were live on radio? Like, what would happen?
I did an interview live on radio. That was quite stressful because they told me, like, listen, you need to be clear about this because we're going to be live. So please stay away from spoilers. I did one with day 94.7, now 947. That's a different story because then you're on air. You can't. You have to think on your feet a lot better. But,
well, I think most people do okay at that. I think in this case. What's interesting to me is that people are like, well, Rome should get in big trouble. I'm like, well, how can he get in big trouble? It was a CBS media appointment. You're all there. Like, that feels unfair because you're responsible for it. And ironically, they're so stringent about the US postseason, which is Trans 5 is not stringent about. But then this exit interview was the issue. And it was like, literally, they were on the call, I assume. So, crazy thing that happened. Yeah.
Season 48 coming up. Anything exciting? We saw anybody we know playing?
No, not this time. Not this
time.
No drafters this time, unfortunately. Which is I've become accustomed to it.
What's gonna happen now? Is Asia gonna draft again? Rob's gonna be just facilitating.
Yeah, unfortunately, because I wanted to pay him back for putting me last.
But I mean, he won the one he drafted, didn't he?
He won one of the two, and then this season he drafted, and he was out very quickly, and he jumped on the grenade, which was great because actually TK was second boot, and I had TK. So I count my lucky stars, Jacques. It's not been such a bad year if you think about the fact that I got Wordle in one, I won the draft this one time. I guess that's basically it.
Well, I mean, this is 2024. What a year for you.
Yeah, those two things. Yeah. What about you, Jacques? What's happening with you? You're not on social media. Can't plug anything.
I mean, I am. I'm just not very active.
Yes.
No, like I said, we moved back from London, which was quite wild. Now back to Africa, so a lot of things to sort out. I have 1 week left to finish my master's dissertation for my engineering master's degree. So I have
Oh, well, thank you
very
for doing
not
this
fun week
now.
left.
Oh,
Yeah, and the holidays. Can you imagine that? I have to submit the 3rd. So it's like I want to get it done before New Year. So that's not a nice kind of. But with moving and whatever, it's been busy. So yeah.
Okay,
But I will. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean you should go back. You should be doing that. Why are you here? Why are you here putting Linkin Park songs into a Survivor podcast? You should be doing that.
I can't tell you I don't want to come because I'm busy. And you would say, well, we've done every single podcast since dawn of time. Well, since we've united, I can't now break the streak unless you say you don't want to ask me again, which is also fine. It's your prerogative. But yeah, I can't break the streak. We've been doing this now for like years. So yeah.
Well, I don't want to be blamed if the
biannual
conversations.
And I mean, I did wash my hands in innocence. So if the crowd can't, ask for my head to be put on a spike because what happened on the Chizy. So hopefully, I don't. Yeah. There's no like mutiny and I get kicked out because I pleaded my case.
I think people will love that I did that with the Chizy. If anything, I think that you've now absolved yourself of credit, not culpability. Like I think this is going to be a very popular decision that I've made.
I will go. I don't know how much traction the post-season episode gets compared to the other ones, but I'll get the YouTube comments and send you a screenshot.
No,
so yeah.
I mean, they're
you
probably
can see the blowout.
Anyway, it's my own insecurities, but people will tell me it's fine. People will the people will message me and tell me what they think about rigging the Chizy, and whether they're enjoying Water Sword and maybe even some strategic stuff. Strategic stuff that happened this season between Ben and Mike.
Going to be so broken. I'm just going to get all these. What do you call it? Not waterboard, water sword.
Water sword, yeah.
Something else.
Waterboarding,
you don't want to experience. I'm getting all these water sorting ads now on my phone.
Yes.
The first one I get, I'm going to send a screenshot. I'm like, thank you, Shannon, for breaking my feed.
Well, how weak-willed am I? Like, I saw one semi-similar challenge on Survivor weeks ago, and I've been playing it ever since. But anyway, that's this podcast. Let us know what you think about rigging the Chizy, about Rachel and her legacy, and all the things the jurors were asking about rankings. There's a lot of interesting stuff. And this is my last Survivor podcast of the year. I've got some stuff coming up. Traders talking about Tony's game with Rob and Puya. The Wicked podcast I've done is coming out. That was a really fun time. So this is all my social media feed at Shannon Gates. Follow me everywhere. Then you will see also my little dance video about winning the draft and also all the content that I'm going to do. And then Australian Survival will start. So this is the time to follow. But Jacques, thank you so much. I hope the dissertation goes okay. I hope that this wasn't like the thing that wrecked it.
If you see me without a tiara, walk into the ocean, then you'll know. Blame Shannon.
Yeah, well, if it goes well, you should get a tiara because they're actually really fun to wear. But this is it for Survivor in 2024. Thank you so much, Jacques, for being my guest. Thank you to our team behind the scenes for the whole year of this, and thank you to everyone listening for listening at all this year. Really appreciate it, and I will see you next year. Bye.
Bye.